Okay, so let's check the homework, James. Your assignment this week was to actually listen to last week's Space Heater chat. So I'm going to check your homework. Did you do your homework, James? Did you seriously do the homework? Honestly speaking.
I know that Kevin survived going to Rogers Stadium.
Oh, this might be a passing mark this time around. All right. What else?
I was gonna say, like, if he had paid more for the tickets, he could have, like, actually got some soap and stuff like that. He probably just stole someone else's soap off the floor and stuff like that when he went into the washroom for that first concert.
Very good, James. Very good. That's a pass.
And the good thing we know is that there were no mishaps at the Toronto shows of Coldplay. We didn't out anyone who was cheating, so all the cheaters were safe in Toronto, I hear.
When did that happen? Was that before? That was after the Toronto.
That was after. Right? That was in New England. That was Boston area. Foxborough or something like that.
Yeah. Some people falsely said it was Fenway.
They were New York-based company, but yeah, it's close enough. Those people could have got there to New England.
Yeah, that's a way to turn that around for what's her name? What's the name of the place again? Astronomer, right?
Yeah.
Astronomy or astronomy.
No, astronomer and stuff like that. Their data analytics or something to that effect. And it was their CEO and then their head of human resources, basically their chief people person, or whatever you want to call them.
Yeah, chief people person. Yeah, and then they both were forced out. And then it's just a stroke of genius that they got Chris Martin's ex-wife, whose name right now slips off my mind.
Gwyneth Paltrow.
Yeah, they got Gwyneth. I should have known. Gwyneth Paltrow as a spokesperson for the interim after all that. Just a stroke of genius of whoever thought of that. So anyway, so in our pursuit to get back on track here around the Anime Roundtable, and I continue saying hello to the regulars in a series of Space Heater chats. Last week we did Kevin. We had Kevin chat for a couple hours and for an hour, and it turned out to 2 hours, 13 minutes. I just looked it up.
Okay, so it was over. Okay.
Yeah, it was over 2 hours. And then James is going to try and beat that record. Good to see you. Good to see you, yep. James. It's been since Anime North. We haven't had a chance to really chat. It's been a busy couple months for both of us, I think, right?
Yeah, busy for everyone and stuff like that. And as the calendar goes through and stuff like that, it's like things went by, as we said, Anime Expo went by, San Diego Comic-Con, and the announcements are obviously different than what they used to be because of streaming and that. It's kind of, instead of us announcing stuff physically, it's like you're announcing things for later, like, seasons and stuff like that. So it's almost like what happened, remember back the Fan Expo, I think it must have been 2005, and Genion announced Fate Stay Night. And well, they didn't announce it there, but they showed the trailer, remember, of Fate Stay Night and Hellsing Ultimate. Yes. It wasn't announced there, but they showed the trailer, and they were and it was pre-iPhone. And supposedly, as we had told the story many times, they were very particular about people not, like, doing video or taking pictures in that. And you can think of how rudimentary our technology was back then compared to having an iPhone now and stuff like that. And those trailers are just on the internet now. They don't even care about them anymore.
Yeah, well, sometimes it's a case of the train. Like it's kind of tough to keep the cat in the bag when there's many cats at that point, right? When we have whole litters of cats to talk about, right? In these things, which is to say there's our technology, smartphone. Everybody has a smartphone now, right? Or enough of us have smartphones and what have you. So let's be honest. Let's just be honest about where we are. So I guess companies just have to learn to adapt with that. Mind you, Kevin also mentioned doing the Ado concert, and they were kind of protective of videos there, right?
No, all concerts nowadays, yeah, some of them are, and the problem is they have people that they're not immersed with the concert, and that's what I think some of them take a lot of issue with. They're like, you can put down your phone for a bit and then like enjoy the concert and stuff like that. And yeah, sometimes you can bring your phone up because where no one has a lighter anymore to like do wave around and stuff like that, like they used to for certain bands and certain songs, right? So they wave their phones with the light on.
Well, I mean, now that you said immerse yourself in the concert and all that, a thought, and this is more of a philosophical thought. It's, just being in the moment. I mean, years ago, I had a professor who said, okay, a picture isn't, how do I put this? Yeah, a picture's kind of nice. It captures the moment, but nothing ever beats actually being there. A picture will only tell you so much, but experiencing it will tell you is really the more important thing. So this is to say, yeah, we could have seen video from the concert and people taping it, but there's nothing like actually being there and coming back to whoever was recording it. Maybe they're paying more attention to just trying to get a good shot rather than just being in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And appreciating what you're actually looking at, right? With your own eyes, not through a camera lens, but with your own two eyes. Just for reference, we are taping a version of this for posterity on StreamYard. We're not live streaming this. And I guess somewhere along the line, we'll make a decision whether or not we actually upload the video version of this. But really, it's just two talking heads. So it's just really, there's kind of no point in doing a video version or showing a video version of what we're taping. There's this fear about, or this thinking that podcasts really, to be popular, it has to have a video component, a true video component. I guess I'm just being lazy. I'll be honest about that. Plus, I guess I'm also of the belief that, a podcast should probably be enjoyed, and it's, with you having maybe headphones on or just listening to something in the background while you're doing something else. At least the way we like to do our show, right?
It's native form, right? But some of them, for us, it's more the radio type idea and stuff like that. Because some podcasts, yes, it makes sense to a degree to have the video because sometimes they have other things like coming on screen, right? Like maybe they're showing images, maybe they're showing like clips or things like that, which you're not seeing in radio. And sometimes as we saw with primetime sports when they were doing it on TV and all that, it was just them talking at the microphones, or even radio in general. There's some that have went to YouTube, and a lot of the times it is, as you said, the talking heads, they're just talking. Sometimes they may have images, but it's not all the time. Like I'm thinking of, I was listening to, I don't know what, it's like, didn't like him really much on TV, but I think kind of radio and being on Chorus Radio kind of freed him a bit. So I kind of took a more shine to him, but Ben Mulrooney and stuff like that.
Yeah, he's
on Chorus Radio, and then they're doing stuff on YouTube and stuff like that. And they have the video, but it's not like he's using it a lot. Like it's all about what they're discussing and stuff like that, even when they have the guests on.
Yeah, that's right. Ben Mulrooney, and he's made news over the last week because apparently he's separated from his wife. That word is coming out that he's now separated from his wife Jessica. But that's kind of, I'm just saying what's been in the headlines, whether it's true or not.
You know how it is with people more famous than us. You never know. The limelight can kind of deteriorate, right?
Yeah, and he's kept a low profile since he left CTV up until he had that show, and obviously he came back into the spotlight a little bit when his father passed away a year or so ago.
Mm-hmm.
And now he's been with Corus and Global News Radio for a little over a year now, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, so, and he had said, yeah, I hadn't done radio before. I was more in camera guy, front of camera and all that other stuff. Well, and that he was learning as he was going sometimes. And it said it wasn't like just getting on a bike and away he went. And he also found that obviously they go after local stars and all that, and he could have more of an opinion and be maybe more of himself and stuff like that. That he wasn't tethered, I guess, as much.
Well, that's also the nature of television too, of doing broadcast TV, right? Because you are tethered to a time frame. You are tethered to more often than not, to a specific format. And I'll underscore again the time frame bit. Usually in increments of 15, 30, 60, 120, 90 minutes, right? Usually increments of 15 minutes, something like that, 15 or 30 minutes. And and there's a set schedule and you have to get it all in that way. I mean, Darren Millard, the former Sportsnet anchor, right? There was a difference in personality you saw from him doing the Hockey Central studio shows on television in primetime, and then the noon hour radio show, right? Albeit that had a 60-minute time limit, but a little bit more of his personality came out. By the way, I'm just going to let you know, we are taping these on various things. Things have been going on here in this building this evening, by the way. So a fire alarm went off here at 6 Points Brewing. There you go.
Do they have like a thing so that when you jump off the balcony that you're going to land safely?
No, we didn't have the trampoline.
No, you didn't.
Or the airbag. Anyway, so that's that. Anyway, that's that. Anyway, Darren Millard. So when Hockey Central, going back to that story, when Hockey Central was going on, he more of his personality came out, and he had a habit of being more sarcastic, a little bit more funny, insulting the former hockey players like Nick Kypreos more often, right? So, I mean, that's just further to the point. And then going the other way, you kind of get Sid Seixeiro when he, during his time moving away from radio and Tim and Sid to going to breakfast television the last couple of years. And he was encumbered by like 6-minute segments. So you didn't really.
And sometimes it felt cookie cutter, right? And you could see that obviously with Ben Mulroney, with Itagu's entertainment reporting and Canadian Idol and all those other things, where it's definitely bing, bang, boom. And it felt like he was just guy in suit, you know what I mean? Very cookie cutter, very vanilla. But he doesn't come off that way on radio. Let's put it that way.
I've never heard
a lot of unvarnished opinions.
Very good. I got to hear a little bit of his radio show to have a sense of where
if you go
his thing.
Like they have clips, like he does clips. They release them like Monday to Friday on the YouTube channel, the Ben Mulroney Show. So it's interesting to check out, and they have different segments. Like obviously, there's some that are politics. Sometimes there's lesser fare and stuff like that. You know, I mean, different random stories that come up, or sometimes it's like he'd have a segment of who's the a-hole, so to speak, and stuff like that. And he has some people
worst person in the world, right?
And so basically he gets people from Reddit to give them a question to explain what they've done and say, am I the a-hole? And so him and a panel discuss whether they are.
Okay. I'll try and watch the YouTubes if I remember later. So there's further to those. And now you have a overview of some of the broadcasting and some of the stuff that goes all around here in Toronto.
Yeah, I'm guessing it's not that bad because I guess from what I see, he's in his studio, so they're probably at Sugar Beach because that's where all the course stuff is now too.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah, I've heard about that. And once again, just to tie Ben Mulroney in our history anime wise, and my own history anime wise. First of all, course in a former life, remember they had YTV. They still have YTV.
They still have YTV. Yeah.
They had a license, and this is a story I always love to tell. And I'm going to also tell a anime related story with Ben Mulroney and from years ago, from roughly 20 years ago too. Probably even more. I'd say closer to 25 now. Two stories. One, I did in like almost 20 years ago. Course had a license to start an anime channel, right? It was kind of hidden, but if you did enough digging around, you knew that they had a license. And then not too long after, a posting came up to be a moderator on their YTV on their YTV forms, and I applied to it, and I ended up with an interview. And in that interview, I told them what I hoped to do and to have some involvement in that possible channel. They were surprised in a pleasant way. I didn't get the job, just for reference, but they were surprised in a pleasant way, or maybe just surprised, that I was aware of the license. They knew they internally that had been known, but they didn't think it was known too far outside the course walls. And at the time, they were in Liberty Village, by the way. I interviewed at offices in Liberty Village. So at least they didn't deny that was on the table. And that license obviously never came to be, and it expired not too long after, some years later. But there's that story. Ben Mulrooney. Okay, I've told this story a few times on the podcast. So and chances are I've told it to you, James. I've met him. Mm-hmm. Actually, it wasn't just me who met him. It was myself. It was Simon and Neil. We've all met him. Back at the Masonic Temple when CTV had studios there. That was the studios that later on, the Masonic Temple studios, when CTV had them, that became the MTV Canada studios. But before that, they ran a channel called Talk TV. And that was Talk
TV, and he had some interesting story, and where it came from, and he was one of the founding members. It was like part of that started the digital channels. Remember Teletoon and all those other ones.
He was part,
but he had said, he was in law school in Quebec City and stuff like that, and he joked about how he got the best contract, almost like what some people do now, telecommuting, right? And he kind of did that for a year and basically got a really good deal because he negotiated his own contract and what basically constituted a segment and all that other stuff, because he was basically calling into the studio, so to speak, from Quebec City. Yeah, which is crazy. He was, and he said they could get away with so much that they couldn't get away with now. And so it would have been interesting to see what they were doing then at the beginning.
It was kind of ad hoc then too. Seamus O'Regan, a former politician.
He said that. He talked about that.
And he was, and they were colleagues at Talk TV. And one evening, on a Friday night in I think 2000 or 2001, we were invited to do a segment talking anime, but only one of us could go. And Simon and I both thought Neil was the perfect guy to sit in on the segment to talk anime, and then we would sit on the background just to see if we can add anything to it. But Simon Neil was great in that segment, but it was Seamus that was the head and was the host of the show, and Ben Mulrooney was essentially sitting to the side, basically on the computers, right? Mm-hmm. And so at the time, this was before he started to get big in broadcasting as well. But that was the brush with fame we had in terms of Ben Mulrooney and Seamus O'Regan. And it's interesting because obviously you also saw two seeming polar opposites in terms of the political spectrums in that one room. Seamus O'Regan went on to become a Liberal politician, and sat in cabinet for a little while under Justin Trudeau. And Ben Mulrooney is, as we mentioned, he's from, as many already know in this country, he's the son of Conservative Prime Minister Brian Mulroney from the 80s, who passed away a year or so ago.
Yeah, progressive conservative. Yeah,
and the family is still in the family through his older sister Caroline is still in politics, right? Mm-hmm. And I think through the Course radio show, we've seen him express some of those chops a little bit more. On top of that, in some ways, and now that I've told this story, in some ways, it's sort of him going back. Could be a roundabout way of him going back to his original roots in broadcasting too. So he started off on a wannabe talk channel that obviously maybe was, I don't know, maybe experimental for where we stood in broadcasting history and in the media history at that point, and obviously didn't work out in the long run. But then he's now on Global News Radio, a talk station. So it's just found it interesting that, it kind of a full circle thing when I think about it now, right? When I think about Ben Mulrooney in that sense. Anyway, okay. Well, we did talk about Ben Mulrooney and anime there, but let's actually talk anime.
Yeah, no, I guess we can talk about the other two things you guys talked about, and then get into the main potatoes.
But okay, so
I guess
the assignment. Well, you have yet to complete your assignment or complete your report from I
guess we'll start with one of the last things you guys covered, because it's easier that way. There's not a good segue from that, but I know Kevin and you guys had talked about the VShojo situation. And basically the VTuber situation, right? And so kind of VShojo kind of exploded like a meteorite in the sky, so to speak. And they've been having issues and stuff like that before, but I think Iron Mouse kind of put it to a head where everyone's like, what are we doing here? Like, and the thing is, the last thing on her list was that she didn't get paid. A lot of the other talent did not get paid, and probably a lot. And you're like, well, why did they get paid? And then all the employees got paid. Well, it's because they are supposedly technically contractors. Supposedly. Now, if we were here in Canada, it would be based on CRA would determine, are they an independent contractor or are they an employee? For them, they're actually based in San Francisco in California. So California would determine a lot of things. And so they could be in a whole heap of trouble, to say the least, from my understanding and some of the things they have there. But California law would dictate whether they're contractor or not a contractor and stuff like that. It'd be interesting to see how they would determine that with VTubers and stuff like that, since they have a lot of the stuff on their end. But it's like, what exactly was VShojo doing for them? Because some of it was the merchandise side, right? And as Kevin said, they didn't seem to do very well on that. Like, one of the VTubers tried to, like, they were trying to do it on the side and do something because VShojo was in such a mess. And like some of the other things is, as we said, when were they founded? November of 2020, when the money was pretty fast and loose. That's when the video game companies were getting investments and stuff like that. And they found some of that $11 million and stuff like that that you guys had talked about. That just kind of evaporates, like where it went, who knows? But they got that free money because I guess for some reason people thought, oh, we're just going to stay in our homes forever. Like, that's never going to happen, right? Well, it's like sooner or later people are going to go outside. You know what I mean? The video game train and the VTuber train's still going to get big, but it's not. I think they should have been lean and mean, and they weren't. They were just going to the moon, so to speak.
So in other words, it was Target Canada. Right. Is it a good way to put it? Is that a fair statement?
I guess you could say that, especially if you say that they were like, I know they had like some of them, the Gunra and all of them were like jealous, I guess, of the other things like HoloLive and all that. Yes, HoloLive had another thing with the Dodgers over Anime Expo and stuff like that, but they grew to that organically and stuff like that. And you don't get there without, and you can have those issues, right, with the other agencies, and they're based in Japan, but they've managed to work their way up and stuff like that. And it seems like VShojo, like some things you guys had talked about, one of the things they were known for, and it was in Tokyo, it was Shibuya Station, was where they had plastered everything with VShojo and stuff like that. Now, whether they were trying to reach out to maybe expats that were with other agencies or independent VTubers over there, but that's a ridiculous amount of money they must have spent to plaster everything in Shibuya Station, one of probably the most expensive facades in the world, stations in the world to probably advertise in. Like, yes, you want to advertise, but there's got to be better ways in online marketing to get that done, and then to put those resources into actually helping them with the merchandise and stuff like that. And I know, as Kevin said, one of them they were talking about, right, how they would help each other, right, the different talents. So I'm guessing some of it, I know they would not overlap for streaming, and sometimes maybe they would raid each other. But as Kevin said, with one of them, what type of streamer are they for a V tier? Because there's so many different ones. Like you maybe don't want a cozy streamer to be basically rating on a lewd streamer, right? Or something like that, or things of
Like
that
a
nature.
IRL streamer or something.
But it's one of those things. And then we'll get to the big crux of it, which is Ironmouse was like the pin. She basically pulled out the final needle or the stick of hay, right, from the pile that made it all collapse, which was she did a stream, as you guys had said, right, for charity and stuff like that. They raised $500,000 USD and stuff like that. Even the gun run, like now this goes against the statement we're going to look at in a minute, but the gun run said, "You did it, Mouse," and all that stuff. Like, and she, as for some of the YouTubers and for Ironmouse, as you guys were talking, it's true that they value their privacy and stuff like that, right? So that's why in that case, for that stream, some of it was with VShojo, and they were supposed to then get the 500,000 to the charity, which was the Immune Deficiency Foundation, or IDF, or what, you know what I mean? So basically, Immune Deficiency Foundation, they were supposed to get there, never got there. And obviously, before they got to this point, there must have been a lot of conversations. And you could tell, like, from her statement, she was disappointed. Like, and that was one of the first things. And then the other thing is none of them got paid, right? Like some of them have been waiting for months and not getting paid. They were paying the employees, and the reason they had to pay the employees is because guess what? If they go bankrupt, they're the ones that are ahead in the line. Like basically all the talent is unprotected for getting their money and stuff like that. So they're unprotected creditors. And the other thing is, before we get to Justin Ignacio, the CEO of VShojo, his statement, the gun run himself, will say that, yes, in his statement, basically they've said they're toast. They're probably going to bankruptcy, and no, they're not going to do Chapter 11. They're not going to restructure. They're going Chapter 7. They're done. They're dead.
Yeah, they're.
And the one silver lining from the story that I'll say before we get to a statement is that, yes, they were one of the few ones that allowed the talent to keep their virtual persona, right? So all their voice, all their virtual appearance, they can keep it and stuff like that. A lot of the other agencies don't allow that. Sometimes it's in a contract where maybe they have to buy it back, right? So at least they all got to keep that, because if it'd been like any other agency, right, and they went into bankruptcy, the receiver would probably be using those and they would be selling their corpses back to them or to whoever would pay the most, right? Which is kind of crazy and grotesque in a way.
Well, okay. So can I ask a thought that Kevin brought up then?
Yeah.
Do you think it's good that like sometimes being able to have that control for a company, to have control over the design or whatever the term is, it might be to hold. I mean, is it what's considered the better thing then for everybody, generally speaking, or is it all perspective? Is it better for the company to be able to hold the design, to have the right to the design, or for the content creator, for the streamer, the talent themselves to own their design, to own the design outright, right? Because sometimes that's a means by which to keep people in the contract. I mean, there's this thinking that, you know, not everybody, there's devils and angels on both sides of the equation here. So what wouldn't stop a streamer from just making that agreement? But if they have their design, they can just, you know, walk away, go somewhere else with their design, and with it their identity in that sense. So I don't know what's the right answer.
I feel like, and the funny thing about this too is you look at the people that were in management, that it just feels like they got the 11 million and they just didn't know what they were doing. Like they were off to the races, and who knows how they spent that money, but they didn't do it well, it sounds like, and they didn't do well of getting merchandise, you know what I mean, to help the streamers on
It's
that side, because they weren't like flowing with the engines on both things to, and yes, they got people and there were probably some great managers they hired and stuff, but everything is in perspective and stuff like that. And in regards to the V2, like V2ing, yes, it can add control in that, but would you say that if it was an IRL streamer and stuff like that, a person that's using their actual face and things like that, you know what I mean? So it's a bunch of bunk in a way in that essence. But
yeah. Well, we use our faces here, right? So I guess we're going. No, I guess we can go wherever we want, right?
But no, it's like one of those things where for Ironmost, of course, is when she valued her privacy and stuff like that, especially since Immune Deficiency Foundation, like it helped her with her you know, I mean, her
She was
immune deficient, and I forget which exact one, right? But they helped her on her journey and stuff like that, and so that's why she was giving back. That's why I think that affected her the most. Obviously, was the 500, and as all of them said, the silver lining was they redid it again. They said, "Hey, it's like in this video, the Tiltify is there. You can give to the Immune Deficiency Foundation." And they got over double the 500,000 amount. So it was well over $1 million USD that they got. And so everyone, even the Immune Deficiency Foundation, almost all of them were surprised, but they said it warmed their hearts.
Yeah. Oh, they were doing the right thing.
But so I guess the thing,
go ahead.
I got to read the statement from the gun run himself, Mr. Justin Ignacio, because it was interesting. And the other thing you got to remember is he was one of the founding members of Twitch, remember? So he had an emoticon on Twitch and they got rid of that because he was one of the founders of Twitch, which was funny. I guess when they were testing TV. But I, as they say, right, it just because you're successful in one arena doesn't mean you're going to be successful in another. But he basically, and when I read this statement and you hear some of the things, Mike, I'm amazed a lawyer even allowed him to say the statement he gave, because it basically was an admission of guilt in a sense. Like they can use that with him in court. And the other thing is the charity fraud, like what happened to the 500,000. That is some criminal stuff. They better watch their behinds on, because they're going to get burned, I'm sure. And that's why some people have come out and maybe they feel confident on the NDAs. Obviously, Ironmost can't because they have a lot more legal proceedings. So it's going to be a long time before they can discuss what has fully happened. But I know, as Kevin said, some streamers have started to come out about a bit of the workings. But I'm guessing they were confident on their NDAs that they weren't going to come after them, even though NDAs, if they go into bankruptcy, right? The NDA doesn't disappear. The receiver or the people, you know what I mean, looking for their money could say, hey, let's go after these people and get money from them, right? But is it worth it spending all that money on lawyers to go after someone for an NDA and stuff like that? So it all depends. Like some lawyers would say, why don't you wait and just leave it until the process goes through, you know what I mean, till they're fully bankrupted, stuff like that. But some feel obviously it isn't a problem. And others could say this too. We had said they didn't get paid and stuff like that, right? Some of the talent that probably left previously, they probably had an original NDA, right? So if they had to sign an additional NDA when they left, usually there's a sweetener they get to sign that NDA and stuff like that.
When you say sweetener, money.
Money, yes. A severance pay or something like that, a good amount, so that basically that's going to make sure that you keep your end of the bargain, right? And if they didn't give the sweetener or whatever, that could be another thing. And there were some weird NDAs, because one of the talents, I know her mother had an NDA signed with them too for some reason. And people are like, why would the mother be signing an NDA? Like, makes no sense. But the last thing to end on, so the statement from Mr. Gunrun here, he had said, the shoujo has failed. and I've mismanaged the company into the situation you're all witnessing. So today I'm sharing the difficult news that Vishojo is shutting down, and I'm taking full responsibility for the decisions that led to this point, which is absolutely wild. He says that in a statement. A lawyer lets him say that. And he's basically saying, I've done everything I can to fundraise and right the ship for a few months. And when he says fundraise, he's trying to find VC, venture capital, and stuff like that. But the money's run dry. Like all these video game companies, you've seen it, that the VC money is starting to run dry. They're realizing the party's not going to go on forever, right? Like it was when the pandemic was happening. So I'm amazed they got what they got, but they couldn't make the 11 million work. And so he says, as he goes on, but despite our efforts, we are in a worse position, and those I care about are now paying the price. Over the past few years, we've raised 11 million to pursue a bold talent-first approach and in VTubing. And so that's where some of the 11 million comes from. We've heard it from other areas, but he said it himself. Prioritizing creators and community over short-term profits to achieve long-term sustainability. Our funding went directly to our creators through generous splits, debut investments, infrastructure, concerts, events, and staffing, all designed to support them. Now, you have to wonder how much of that is true, because it's like we've seen where they ended up. And then he says, we also wanted talent to own their IP, which we knew was unique creator first approach for an agency, which is true. So they allowed them to keep that. So I guess that's one small thing they can be proud of, but very small, given all the things that has happened. And so he goes on, he says, however, despite our efforts, the business failed to generate the revenue we needed to sustain the model, and eventually we ran out of money. Additionally, I acknowledge that some of the money spent by the company was raised in connection with talent activity, which I later learned was intended for a charitable initiative, which is bullshit, because guess what? When they raised that 500,000, right? And Iron Mustache or subathon, stuff like that, he had tweeted about. And then there was another tweet when they finished, and he said, "You did it, Mouse." So bullshit on that. He knew what what was happening.
Yeah.
And so that one, I can't believe a lawyer would even allow that in a tweet.
That's probably the one that you're really, like, most people would have dogpiled on, right? Because, I mean, he can't claim ignorance. He can't plead ignorance. It's tough to plead ignorance when you congratulated the original time, right? So yeah, I think that's probably the hang up. But
yeah, he basically goes on the same things, and then at the end he says, I'm deeply sorry to the talents, staff, friends, and community members who believed in our talent. You did not deserve this. And so that's what Mr. Gunrun, Justin Ignacio said, but he might have done okay with Twitch before they obviously sold it off to, venture capital, and then before it went to Amazon. But obviously he believed in this, and some of them believed in this, and there was some good kernels of ideas, but they just could not make it work. And as they said, they have other stories. They said that some of them weren't the greatest people in the world. Like one of the people that was in the hierarchy, of course, in the executive suite, so to speak, he had left 2 months before this all happened, and he basically made this kind of like, oh, what happened, stuff like that. But people later basically responded to his tweets, and basically everyone knew he knew what was happening 2 months ago. This wasn't like something that just happened. It has been over a number of months, at least a year at the most, that they weren't paying talent and things were just going downhill, right? And basically they were taking money since the 11 million has basically run out. They were probably doing terrible accounting and taking money. It was basically almost like a Ponzi scheme, right? It's like, we're going to take the money, put it here, hope somehow it's going to keep the ship going, right? And then get more money, right? And that's just garbage. Like they should have, like a year and a half before, when the rocky wave started happening, when the first talent started leaving, is been honest with all the talent the employees had, all hands on deck, and basically said, you know what, we did get the 11 million. we're starting to run out. Our model isn't as great as we thought. We're going to try and make it work and stuff like that, but everyone's going to have to take a haircut. Everyone's going to have to take like a pay cut, you know what I mean, or take less and stuff like that for every single person, from the CEO all the way down to the janitor and stuff like that. And then maybe something better would have come of it, but they never even did that. And the other thing is, how are people even going to get money out of this? Because I think the only thing they might have, I don't think they probably own their building. They probably rented it. They probably, the office furniture is the only stuff they have. Like the merch, they had trouble even producing it. So what merch did they have? It's just probably mostly nonsense.
You wonder. I mean, it just sounds like it just sounds like not having your foundation well in place.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, we just joked about trying to get too big too fast, and contrast that with something like HoloLive, I guess. Right? Mm-hmm. What did they do right? What did they do right to be where they are? And was it tighter controls? Not trying to do too much, maybe. I mean, they had a lot to work with, but then, you know,
and I know they had some leaks from Shoujo about how the numbers kind of looked and what they were presenting to obviously these investors. And to say the least, the numbers were quite optimistic. And then there were some issues with cost of goods sold where I think they had put some of the managers or some of the people in there that should never have been in there. It was just absolute nonsense. Like the numbers, they were being too generous, to say the least. And they talked about like they had partnerships, so there was some partnerships, but it didn't seem like obviously they needed to find a way to grow, not just grow that existing partnership, but find the other partnerships, just like probably HoloLive and all those other things. And sometimes you never know how that's going to happen, because obviously they probably, HoloLive and some of the others, yes, they had AX and all that, and probably at some point someone there in the LA area probably talked to different people, like, you know, I mean, business people in LA, and one of them they might have talked to is, okay, baseball's going on, right, in July when AX is going on, and probably worked away basically to make something happen. And probably the big thing that helped them, that started the ball rolling last year, is Ohtani. So Ohtani obviously was already there in Anaheim, right? But him still being there with the Dodgers and stuff like that, and then getting more Japanese talent and stuff like that, I think gets the ball rolling. And it wasn't like, they definitely made it big, but it just, they said it got even bigger because there was so much synergy going on, right?
So properly catching lightning in a bottle too. LA's a good place to do it, I guess, within our fandom and its overlapping interests. I mean, LAFC, on that topic, to talk sports and Asian pop culture, LAFC this over the last week got Son Heung-min, the former the Korean international and former captain of Tottenham. And he came off the bench for them in a 1-1 tie against Chicago over the weekend, and that made news. That made news certainly in Korea. He's considered a god there.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, LA is a great place to do this, I guess. Boy, how do you feel as a Jays fan? Well, you took one of three anyway, and you didn't lose ground in the AL East. So I guess you know what? If you were going to tell me that you'd come away from LA not losing or having the same lead you had going in, that's probably an okay weekend. And the
problem was, Mike, they scored too many runs in Colorado with the thin air.
They used them all up in Denver. That's what happened. But hey, when you had a rookie strike out Ohtani with the bases loaded and game on the line.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. Dodgers took 2 of 3, but the one game that the Jays did take, people remember because of the way it happened. It was a crazy game. Maybe they
Yeah,
shouldn't have won
and
but they
that's
won.
what playoff baseball can be like, right? So it's one of those
Just
things.
once again about catching lightning in a bottle. It does make you wonder though, and remember we're also a couple weeks out from Ichiro entering the Hall of Fame, and his number was retired in Seattle over the weekend on this whole topic. And remember, at the time he was with Seattle, it was owned by the man behind the then chairman of Nintendo, by Yamauchi.
Yep, the Yamauchi family and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And obviously, Nintendo America helped them basically keep it, keep it running and stuff like that. Because remember, Yamauchi, he never famously went to Seattle to actually watch a game or be in the building, even though they built the one stadium, right? So Safeco Field, they built that for them.
It's now called T-Mobile Park, but yeah, it's a weird one because okay, could they have done it there, or maybe I guess that was before the time before we all cared about this type of stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
imagine.
Well,
they had things in there with the DS and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So they integrated some of the stuff in there.
Oh, sure, and in the later years, Ken Griffey actually, and in Ken Griffey's
early years, Ken Griffey Jr. and stuff like that.
In the latter part of his time in Seattle, because by that point, Yamauchi had control of the team, and he featured.
Because it was 92, 91, they had bought the team and stuff like that. So.
Yeah. So you wonder, you look back on it and see if such a capitalization could have happened in Seattle when Ichiro was there. But then again, I guess it was just another time, and before we were made all aware, and before Japan really became cool. So just
it was kind of the opposite field, because it was the tail end of, remember, the 80s and stuff like that. The bubble was just popping and stuff like that, and there was a lot of anti-Japan sentiment, because remember when Yamauchi and them were going to buy the Seattle Mariners, like they were thinking of moving them again, right? And a lot of people in Seattle didn't want the Mariners to move, because remember, Seattle Pilots had moved before, and they had gotten their team when the Jays got their team and stuff like that. And so they basically had said, I think one of the arguments is, we can't have foreign ownership basically in Major League Baseball. But that immediately got blown up, because remember, the Expos and Jays existed.
Yeah, well, on top of that, Yamauchi already had interests in the area, with Nintendo having their offices in Washington.
And that was basically what the argument came down to and stuff like that. And the fact that they said, hey, we're going to keep the team here. My son-in-law is running Nintendo of America, Minoru Arakawa. And Howard Lincoln obviously was there too, and he went on to be one of the presidents of the Mariners and stuff like that.
Lincoln was more the prominent figure, was a prominent figure in the Mariners' history. So, yeah, and you know how it's gone since. So, and the Mariners are the Mariners do hold a playoff series win over the Jays. They're where do they stand right now in the standings? Just to end off that thought.
I'm not sure off the top of my head. Them and the Astros are fighting it out, I know.
For the West? Okay.
Yep, for the West and stuff like that. So,
but the Mariners always strike me as a dangerous team anyway. These days anyway. Okay.
Yeah. They were out. They got the Canadian first baseman from Arizona and stuff like that. Remember Naylor
Naylor? Yeah, you're talking Naylor.
And he used to be with Cleveland, but because they needed a bat, we needed pitching, so we're just waiting for some of that to come to light.
Yeah, could have used it over the weekend, I guess. But remember, look, the Jays are still up by 4 in the East, and they're still fighting it out for the best record in the AL. So,
and those bye weeks are important and stuff like that now in baseball and stuff like that. You can get your rest while the wild card teams fight it out.
Sure, and the Jays are off tonight as we're talking, and they've had a few days, and they had one off on Thursday too. So, and keep in mind, they start to struggle without having having days off. So maybe the rest will do them some good. Okay,
so I guess the last point from the week before was the manga talk and stuff like that. So,
okay, can I say this just quickly and just to break the ice on this whole talk? I was out today after the dentist. After I went to the dentist, I went to a Korean supermarket. Aside from seeing the ice cups, aside from seeing the ice cups, which you see YouTube video shorts on these days, and associated drinks, I was looking for Oshiroku, which is the Azuki bean drink that Alia drinks. That Alia from Alia sometimes hides her feelings in Russian.
Okay.
That's her favorite drink. I was looking for that, didn't find it, so instead, that's why I'm drinking a flavored Dr. Pepper today, strawberries and cream. Anyway, okay, your thoughts manga wise, and then we'll go to the anime side because
the quick thing is like as Kevin was saying, a lot of old stuff is coming back and stuff like that. Mars, I know that I can't remember if we had said before, but Dragon Head's coming back from Kodansha at the end of the year. They're doing a 2-in-1, which will be nice because the old Tokyo Pop ones, they translated some of the sound effects, but not all of them. And since it was a horror manga for Dragon Head, sometimes having those sound effects translated was important and stuff like that. Even though, remember, it was authentic manga and stuff like that. It's like it took us years just to say, you know what, we can leave the sound effects there, but at least give us a bit of translation on them. You know what I mean? For the noises.
Once again, coming back to my theory about my underlying belief in translation, the true one-to-one isn't necessarily words; it's feelings. They won't remember what you say, but they'll remember what how you felt. Right?
Because sometimes what would happen in Dragonhead, for example, you would have some panels, right? It's all black, and then you'd have the sound effects, and sometimes they translate, sometimes they didn't. As like, okay, what's going? I mean, you can probably make it out, but it's still.
It's probably you probably have a sense, but not a true sense, right? What are they? What are they getting at? It's supposed to be spooky. Spooky in what way? Right.
Mm-hmm. And then the other one, I remember, Mushishi is coming back and stuff like that, and a 2-for-1 as well at the end of the year and stuff like that. And I know Del Rey had put that out, so that'll be nice to have that back in print. So it's nice that some of them are bringing stuff actually back into print and stuff like that, not just leaving it digital or just leaving it out unlicensed and stuff like that. So we'll see how all those go. New generations to find it, as Kevin said, and you never know where that's going to happen. For Mars, as he said, that was TikTok and stuff like that, right? I believe.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, because it went viral during the pandemic.
So you never know what's going to happen with some of these series and stuff like that. But it's good to bring them back and hopefully have some more people discover it. And on the thing of discovering manga, I know you had said you had went on a shopping spree. I know Alia and Dress Up Darling at Indigo, huh?
Yeah. Okay. Alia, you know what? There's another title on my list. I read the synopsis and it sounds interesting to me. I have to make sure I get this title correct because that might be in there. I get the feeling that could end up being a shop at some point in the future. Oh, great. Now I have to sign into my Indigo account to be sure.
Well, go ahead.
Give me a thought, though. Am I crazy for being curious about light novels these days?
Yeah, like, that was the other thing I was going to tell you is that I think it was more of what Kevin said, too, is you have to remember light novels are the best they've ever been and stuff like that. And you also got to remember they're going into audiobooks as well. They're more expensive, but they're actually going to audiobooks. Some of the series, if they have an anime series, they will get some of the English voiceover to read the novels and stuff like that. And Seven Seas is doing it. Yen Press is doing it. And it's for their big titles and stuff like that. And I think Yen Press is helping J Novel do it as well, because J Novel, I know, is doing Sentence of a Bookworm, bringing that through to audio novel, and they're using the voice of mine from the English dub and stuff like that. And they've reached out, obviously, to Funimation voice actors sometimes for light novels that they want to use for that. But I think it's as big as it's ever been. I think it was maybe just before Haruhi, or when Haruhi and Spice and Wolf were coming out, like 15 years ago and stuff like that. Because remember, Seven Seas tried, like, it was Yuri and light novels. They tried both the Strawberry line and some light novels. It was like Wicked City and a few others. Oh, Strawberry Panic was the other one they tried, because that was a mix of Yuri and the light novel. But it didn't work and stuff like that. And all these years later, Yuri and light novels have had a renaissance, and like the audience had to grow to get there. And so the audience had grown enough and matured enough that they're a lot more successful and stuff like that. And now it's like, well, which ones are you going to bring over? And the other problem that can burn people out, even on the anime side, is yes, some of them are from online web novels that are created by creators, and a lot of them, how they start out is isekai is probably one of the most popular genres and stuff like that.
And that's
so
why
some isekais can burn you out. Like if I was to choose, obviously it's more of a novel, but 12 Kingdoms is back in print from Seven Seas. That is like the granddaddy isekai, one of the granddaddies of them all. But if I was to give you one isekai, recent isekai over the last 10, 15 years that you got to read and has had an anime, manga, and all that other stuff, is Ascendance of a Bookworm. Like, it's all finished now. It's like the print run's probably going to finish up in a couple of months, and it's like 5 parts, and it must be, I want to say, over 30 volumes, like some ridiculous number that I've collected. But it'll be interesting. Like, I'm going to go back again, because the world building of that creator is incredible, of how she built this world and stuff like that, and how something you read in the first few volumes kind of comes up again later on and stuff like that, and you're like, oh, I remember that and stuff like that, and it becomes pivotal later on of world building. And sometimes that doesn't always happen in isekais.
Well, it's like, once again, we talked about the web novel stuff, or isekai, rom-com, right? Isekai and rom-com seem to be the two most popular genres, and in turn, that tends to fuel a lot of the light novel stuff. The Girl I Saved on the Train turned out to be my childhood friend. That's the series that.
Yeah, and that's from Yen Press. That's a light novel and
manga
and a manga. And I don't think there's an anime yet, but you never know. But yeah, no, they are. See, that's the other key thing. You can tell that it's developed enough where it's not just series that already have an anime and stuff like that, or have the anime coming up soon. It's basically some series that don't have any of that at all yet. You know what I mean? And we haven't heard that there's going to be an anime yet. So that tells you that there is some legs for some of the, basically not just the Yuri, but also the light novels. Now, remember at the beginning with Haruhi and with Spice and Wolf, they tried to do Americanized covers. They tried to actually get them to put them in the YA section, right? To put it away from the manga, but they had to. I don't think it really worked out as well. So, like, obviously, it's all together, the manga and the light novels.
Yeah,
are together in the bookstores, and that probably is for the best and stuff like that.
It's probably the most sensible thing to do, because now with your little speech, right, with what you just said over the last bit, remember that conversation we had a couple of years ago talking about, like, you made me really reflect on that conversation, but we had hammered it in about the media mix and the ecosystem, right? We had that conversation about merchandise a few years ago in a Space Heater. Mm-hmm. And then we heard and then Squirrely gave me a few more thoughts. This is essentially an extension of that, and essentially the next, like, a part of all this. Our fandom has done two things over the 25, 30 years that both of us have been basically involved in this, right? Have been observing the industry. It's done two key things. One, it's grown both in numbers and in age. And two, it's became sophisticated. It knows what's real and what isn't. And it demands it. It demands high quality. It demands legit and high quality. And people know of the existence of light novels and how it informs and how it fuels the fandom. How it really does fuel the ecosystem, and they want to go there now, maybe just a little more.
And it all depends too, right? Because J novel, and I think that was the one about what was it? My stepsister was my former girlfriend or something like that.
Yeah, my
You were
mother,
watching-
my stepmom's
you-
my stepmom's daughter is my ex.
Yeah, is my ex. Yeah. So that one, yeah, they had the anime, but they had put that out on. So that one is, as you said, digital only. That was with J Novel. So I'm with J Novel, and how that works is it is basically they start releasing a few parts, basically of that novel, right? And then once they're done, basically they get it all edited and all that stuff finalized. Then they do the digital version later, and then after a bit of time of that, they stop those parts, don't become available again, and stuff like that.
You can only buy them as a novel.
Now, those parts can come back because they do monthly refreshes where certain series, all the parts come back and stuff like that if you want to read them a la carte and stuff like that for that month. But basically, it's timed and stuff like that. And then for J Novel, like Sam Panansky and them, he's done well with that model, and I've enjoyed that model. And some of the stuff, yeah, it's fine to keep digital, but at least they've been like Seven Seas and Yen Press, that they've been able to get those physical versions out there. And obviously now they are a part of Katakawa and a part of Yen Press and are working with them now and stuff like that.
And I appreciate that. And as I said, my stepmom's daughter, that is, I've stated that's one I eventually want to read. And right now it's only available digitally. I'm going to show my hand me down Kindle Oasis, because
but it's one of those ones where yeah, it probably, but they are very particular for their manga and light novel. They don't like just throw them all out into physical and stuff like that. So I'm not sure. That's one of the ones where it might stay digital and stuff like that. But that's not the worst thing that can happen in the world.
As long as it's there, and I'm at peace with that. So that's why I'm holding my Kindle. So there's that, and I guess we continue that as we go along.
Actually, I got a question for you. Since you were ordering on Indigo and I order some of my manga and stuff like that, when you got your stuff sent to you, you know how they'll split up your packages and stuff like that. How much of it actually came from Canada, from the GTA, from that warehouse? Was there any that was coming from, instead of like private couriers, from UPS, and it came from Oregon, or it came from Nashville, and somehow it comes from there? It goes so we're buying from a Canadian company, in Canadian dollars and all that. Then it's coming from the US. It comes over the border somehow as quote unquote, I guess it's already Canadian or whatever, and gets to us without an issue. You know what I mean? Like, you would think something happens.
You haven't watched the streams in the last couple of weeks, have you?
Oh, I haven't. Oh boy.
Okay, well, don't worry. I didn't actually try to assign that to you, but you probably didn't keep up with what happened.
Oh, what was I missing?
Okay. And this was on, and check the shorts too. Check the shorts on on the Instagram, because and then we'll get to what the stuff that caught your attention afterwards.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. The 42 book order. The 42 book order was broken up, and it came in dribs and drabs, obviously. We're now down to, and for reference, we're now down to the items that have yet to actually be released. So it's the latest volumes of.
And sometimes, even if they're in stock, it might be a little it might wait a bit. But some of the in stock online, it's shipping from these US places. But go ahead.
And that's what and 8 of those books, looking back on it, came from, they were from UPS. They were going through Oregon. They were going through the Western and Indiana and all these places.
Yeah, no, it's interesting to see where they came from.
Yeah, and the bottom line is, and this is in the stream, you saw it happen because it was during the Blackpink concerts, right? I opened up that package of 8 books.
And it says Ingram Books or something like that is where they say it came from.
And there was nothing there, but the thing was 8 books 6 were damaged, 3 of them severely. The worst one was volume 5, I believe, of Blue Box. It was stuck to the box. The adhesive on the inside of that box, of that envelope, it was stuck to that.
Wow. So now I wasn't ordering that amount, you know what I mean? Like I wasn't ordering that amount of books and stuff like that. But I've been lucky. I've not had it like any spine damage or you know what I mean, damage to the front or back. But you never know, right? It could happen.
And that's
well, luckily you can still go into the Indigo or wherever. And I guess get a refund. The question is, some of them maybe they might have one in the store, and you might be able to get a swap.
Oh, actually, I got on that right away. Called customer service, sent them photos, etc. To be fair to Indigo, and at the time I wasn't happy, and I made it sound like I was blaming Indigo, but the thing is, everything about the package said it wasn't in Indigo's hands at any point. They just worked on their behalf. It was a UPS, like a printed out generic. I guess it was UPS, but even UPS would have their,
I know the ones for me, the ones that came from the States, it was in the brown truck.
Okay.
It was all UPS.
Not in this case. I don't know in this case in that sense. But it was just a generic slip, no UPS letterhead on it, just said UPS. I guess it was partly through them. But it was just somebody else handled it. Whoever handled it, and I'm confident at this stage to say it wasn't anybody with Indigo directly. Handled it poorly, and Indigo understood that, and I guess they've seen this case enough times, so they were cool about it. Replacements, right? They shipped off replacements that they arrived a week later, and I opened that on stream, and it turned out way better. And they just said, when you feel up to it, you can either keep the books 20% off, the damaged books for 20% off, or just return them, no extra charge. Or just return them to us through shipping, or just return it to store, and there'll be no extra charge. I was happy. I was so relieved when the replacements came. Went to Sherway the next morning. That's the closest Indigo here to 6 Points, and the closest to the Anime North compound. And they took it back in, no problem. And I showed and the entire time I kept that stuck volume stuck to the box, so they knew so just to underscore.
And the other thing I think for those ones that they don't have, when it comes from Canada, you know how they have the sticker?
Yeah.
It says this is what was shipped or whatever. Those ones I know that have come from the States and UPS.
They don't have that.
You do not have that. It just has a shipping, a piece of paper with a shipping manifest.
And that was pretty damaged too, ironically. But no, you're right, because Indigo would have an invoice.
But this has been since COVID, because before COVID, I can't remember them ever having stuff I ordered online coming through the States into Canada and stuff like that. So that's interesting how those networks work. And the other reason I think that is because of the tariff situation, because I'm like, how the hell are these things when did they become Canadian, or when did they become property of Indigo? It's like, it makes no sense to me.
Yeah. But
I'm waiting for one day to say, okay, here's the 35% retaliatory tariff you got to pay, even though I ordered it from a Canadian company.
Yeah, well, ongoing, I guess. Ongoing.
Well, actually, I got hit by one of those.
Oh, yeah,
it
for
was
what?
Funny. I ordered from and it's going to tie in nicely because of what we're talking to next, but I've been ordering from Media OCD store for some Anime Ego stuff, because I want to because as Justin Savakis and his team said, like, ordering from them directly, it'll give them, as a small business, a little more money in the pocket and stuff like that. You know what I mean? And they give a nice little slip cover they don't have anywhere else and stuff like that. You can order, actually, funny enough, for for Anime Ego, the Blu-rays, unlike Discotech stuff, you can't get on Amazon.ca. You can get Anime Ego Blu-rays at Amazon.ca. They are basically the MSRP of US plus whatever the exchange is. So they're doing it based on the exchange rate, which for some may be too much, but it is what it is. It's kind of, I think the reason it kind of hits some people too is for some reason, all those Crunchyroll Blu-rays on Amazon.ca, they change all the time once they release, right? The price, it goes up and down like no tomorrow. But if you pre-order, the pre-order matches the MSRP of the US price. So if it's $69.99, it's $69.99 Canadian, but you got to pre-order, which is kind of crazy.
It's a fine art. You're in the
But
process
anyway,
of mastering it.
so just to tie up the story, two of them that came. So the one was Nobody's Boy Remy, classic anime series, probably just as sad or crazy as Grave of the Fireflies. Like that, I still haven't got through all of it, and it was like first time viewing. But I know it's a classic, and obviously it's based off a French novel and stuff like that. But this anime and stuff like that, it's and this is the original from the 70s. It's just this thing. The greatest villain has got to be the narrator, because Remy's going about his life, and just when he like finds his happy place, finds all this greatness, the narrator comes in, and Remy was the happiest he ever was, and then just drives it right into him like he's gonna punch him in the face. This poor French boy.
In the mouth, more like it, but
anyway, so Remy, I got that in May, and it went through Canada Post. That and this, so the tariffs for the 25% came in March. That border agent said, "Okay, you just have to pay the handling fee for Canada Post, $10, and the taxes, which is HST." So I'm like, "That's fine." You know what I mean? So here's where I pay the nice whopper is last month, July. I got Romeo's Blue Skies, which was one of the more recent World Masterpiece theater ones, animes and stuff like that. And so Discoteca got that. So I got that sent to me last month in July. And I looked at it and I'm like, well, this seems really odd. It seems really like more expensive than the last one. So the fee for Canada Post was there. The HST was there. But then I see the 25% retaliatory tariff tacked on. And I'm like, well, what did this border guard think? Like, what was his reasoning behind that? But trying to go against that, I just said, you know what? I'm just going to pay it. I'm just going to pay it and suck it up.
Yeah.
But it basically, it's one of those things where you kind of have to watch, and it definitely makes it tighter on the pocket where you say, it's like, I'd love to support Justin Zemeckis and Meteor City, give them a few more pennies in their pocket, but it's harder when there's other circumstances that can prevent you, and then it hurts small business, right?
Yeah.
And now it's 35%, as you know, this
as
month.
of last week.
But it's one of those things where you're just shaking your head, but it is what it is, right? So now you got to think about where you want to buy and all that. It's just like Crunchyroll store. I'll tell you a funny thing, and that is, if you order there as a Canadian still, they're still doing it like it was Right Stuff. If it's coming from Grimes and stuff like that, they're sending it by FedEx. They're not, it's no questions asked. They're not asking me about tax. They're not asking me about anything. It's like I'd already paid the tax like we did when we were with Right Stuff, which is crazy. I'm wondering when the shoe's going to drop on that one.
You know what? Like, you made me think about this. Remember, I also unboxed a couple of Blue Box figures about a month or so ago. Oh, maybe you didn't see that, but I got a couple Blue Box figures from Japan.
Okay.
A month or so ago. Last week or a week or so ago, I ended up with an invoice from FedEx. Apparently, there was an import.
Sometimes they send it to you after
the fact. I never been.
They didn't do that. The way Right Stuff had set it up, you never had to worry about that.
It was in the price.
That's why basically we're probably getting away with it, because they're thinking it's like under the old system. But that does happen a lot for FedEx, and even DHL, that happens too, right? So,
yeah, and so I got that.
And UPS, so yeah.
So, okay, I just wasn't aware of the concept, but okay. But anyway.
It depends on who they said is it the importer, or is it the person export? And it's fun games.
Yeah, I guess I in my case, I paid it too. Okay, so that's looking back.
Speaking of, since we said Anime Ego, they them
this is
and
the stuff that caught your attention.
Yeah, it was probably
Before
good
we
I
go.
came this week because we last weekend we had Otakon, and obviously if you're up in Montreal, they had Otakuthon, but Otakon, that's where Discotech and Anime Ego, Justin Zavakis, his team, and the Discotech, same people, but Discotech's in the dealer's room, so Mr. Discotech and them probably stay in there, and then they let the other guys do the panel, but they had their blow-on panel at Otakon like they have had the past few years. And it's probably good for them because they have that moment to themselves. And it's kind of like the old school anime announcements and anime panels and stuff like that, which is nice, right? Not like it is now where we're talking about the announcements at the, at Anime Expo and the things at San Diego Comic-Con, where it's things that are in the future and are streaming and stuff like that. We're talking about physical products and that old school anticipation of getting really excited, right? And seeing what's coming.
And placing our bets like we did before.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I guess you can still kind of do, and you see those things where they do surveys, but I guess it doesn't have the same fun or ring to it of looking at light novels and manga or games and saying, well, which one do you think is going to be the one to be announced for a new season? And then you never know, is it going to be next year? Is it, you know what I mean? Because sometimes it's further out and stuff like that, but sometimes they're just announcing something that's already been announced, right? And with Crunchyroll and all of them, it's not just Anime Expo. They haven't, when they announce certain things, it's become really global. Like they've announced stuff in the UK, they've announced stuff in Germany, and it's for the global market now, which is kind of crazy, right?
Yeah, because Sony is the world. So, okay, so Anime Discotech, what caught your attention?
Okay, so for them, we might as well start with Anime Ego since they were the smaller panel. Obviously, Justin and them are still getting things off the ground. It's only been a year literally since they started releasing discs under their management and stuff like that. And so they didn't have a stream or anything like that. They did their panel obviously before Discotech, right? Because they're going to stay in the room and stuff like that and continue on. But they were saying their releases coming up and stuff like that. The Full Moon is going to finish up the second set in November. And I think the important thing about Full Moon, and I'm sure Kevin will appreciate, so the first set is just coming out now. Hopefully it'll be out soon because they had a little issue with one of the episodes, so they're trying to re-replicate it. But these things happen, right? And for Full Moon, the dub, remember it was done in Calgary, Blue Water. And so the Calgary Blue Water dub, Viz had released up to a certain point. The first set has all that. The second set, they found the rest of the dub. So it's going to get the full Blue Water dub, and that second part's going to be out in November. So that'll be a nice thing for that shoujo series. And then in December, they said they had announced this, but it's nice to know it's going to be the end of the year. This one I'm definitely going to get, and I'm going to take my chances at the BD OCD store, is the Blackjack OVA. So that was one of Osamu Dazeki's, one of his final series and stuff like that. And so they have the 10 episodes plus the 2 other episodes that were done after his death and stuff like that, that have never been released here. Well, they have been streamed on Retro Crush a couple of years ago, are still on there, but we have a full clean translation now, and they'll look their best for those final 2 episodes. The only thing is they will not be dubbed for the final 2 episodes. So the first 10 episodes that were already released by CPM back in the 90s, they are going to be there with the Bang Zoom dub and stuff like that. And I think Justin said they tried to look to see if they could bring back the cast or bring back some of them for the final 2 episodes. But obviously it's tough when they're starting up and to get that dub off the ground. You know what I mean? So
yeah, I'm looking at some of this now. Yeah,
but having the Blackjack on, in time for Christmas is nice to see. They're going to have all the extras that was on CPM's release and stuff like that. And that was, that had some great, like, I think they had some commentaries from Osamu Dezaki. Like they had his, like Dezaki's commentaries. And I think it was CPM, like they had done that before with Pat Labor and with Oshi, where they got them into a room and they had them, they were kind of watching the episode but interviewing them at the same time. So I remember, because I have the DVDs, it's a nice commentary and stuff like that. And these episodes are not your traditional like they're OVA type episodes, an hour long, and it's just a treat to watch them. And so the other things they got was they had one that had never been released before, and that's Hotori Simply Wishing for Hope. And that's an OVA that they're going to get out beginning of 2026. And that was from Sunrise. And that supposedly was around 2005 it came out. So it's another one of those things that flew under the radar. And I might give a flyer on and see how it turns out for that one.
It's just reading the quick release on this, or quick blurb on this on ANN. Just sounds like an interesting plot, or just sounds like an interesting premise right off the bat.
Yeah, the one-liner is basically story of a robot boy who bonds with a terminally ill girl.
Yeah, and the one image that they released, yeah, that's interesting.
And then obviously Justin he's worked at CPM, so he went back to the CPM vault, Central Park Media, and to Mr. O'Donnell, and he's decided he's going to release Alien 9 and stuff like that on Blu-ray. So I guess that'll be, like, I'm not sure how, like, it probably was a good price, and it'll be interesting to see how many people want to pick that up. I probably would wait and see what happens, because I already have, I'm not sure, did you get the one, Mike? Remember CPM had a box set, and so it was the DVD for the OVA, and then I think it was the 3 volumes of the manga was in the box with it.
I never got Alien 9 myself, so I couldn't answer.
That's probably not something I'm going to get, but it's nice to see they're bringing some stuff out and getting things going again. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. That's the short version of the Animigo panel, and then right after.
Yeah, right after. So Discotheque was interesting. So they had the live panel at Otakon, and then at the same time, and they started this last year, they did a not live YouTube stream. And some of the announcements, there were 10, I think it was like 10 of the announcements were there live and on the stream. And then the stream continued with more announcements. So they had a lot to announce. So they talked about Shin-Chan being released on SD Blu-ray. And that's the English, the English dub that Funimation had done and had put on Adult Swim and stuff like that. So that's what they started off with. Not for me.
Could it not be on Adult Swim?
And then the other thing is, I know if you look at the ANN thing, so they talked about Higurashi. So Higurashi, the first season is coming out in October. And then they announced that Higurashi, When They Cry, Kai and Rei are going to be coming out next year and stuff like that. So they probably got them all together. And I think Kevin's probably going to wait, but I think I'm going to jump in and get all 3 again. Well, the Sentai release, as people said, like, the subtitles needed some more love and care. And I think Discotheque's going to give it a good editing sweep for both of them. For the first season, for Kai, Rei was okay, but it needs some love. The second season, Kai, so that's the answer arcs. I double checked. It was one set that Sentai did, but 2 of the episodes were the video quality wasn't that, like, there were some issues, to say the least, on 2 of the episodes. So they're going to fix that up, which is nice. So I feel like I'm going to get the best version for all 3 of those when they come out.
Astro Res will be doing OT. Okay.
Well, I don't know about Astro Res, but well, I know they said Blu-ray, but we'll see how it all goes. Like, it really depends on the series. Now, the other one, and this is one I got from Media OCD, didn't have to worry about, but they had the first collection of Overfiend. Remember Urotsu Doji.
Doji. Yeah, Urotsuka
So
Doji.
So now they have the rest of the movies and OVAs being released in a second SD Blu-ray set. So the first one was on regular Blu-ray. This one's going to be on an SD Blu-ray set. So that'll be nice, I guess, to get out for some people for the adult history, right?
Oh well, it's a thing, and it's
a classic, and
it's a classic, and it's a part of the history of our fandom, right?
And then
we can do I mean, people aren't always comfortable with it, but it is a part.
Mm-hmm.
So we can't.
We just gotta hope, Mike, that the credit card companies are nice to us and hope that they feel it's okay, right?
I knew you'd do that.
We're not going to talk about them. We're not going to talk about them. But I just thought you can't say it.
I knew you'd eventually come up with that reference sooner or later, and we hadn't talked about it in talking about this and preparing for this. This actually, today in texting and talking about this today and over the weekend. Yes, we did mention that blurb like a week ago, but none of that part did not come up. The whole payments thing did not come up until just now. Way to go, James.
It's kind of funny because we'll probably get into it in another episode. It's just funny how we had talked about that previous episodes. But if you've been keeping up on Steam and itch.io, I think you know what we're talking about. And what's happening in the UK, you know that it's fun times ahead. It's like, who knows if anime is considered okay for payment processors in the future, right?
Yeah, forget the yeah.
I'll give you an example later in when we talk in a moment about that. But anyway, so they talked. They had more Sergeant Frog, the movies and that, and they said that it just happened that they were able to get, even though the last time they said, yeah, it probably wasn't going to happen. They were rescuing some stuff from ADV, so they got Zone of the Enders.
Yeah, Zone of the Enders. Yeah, that's.
And then
I have not heard that title in years, by the way. I don't recall ever watching it, but the name I always remember.
And then the other thing where it's interesting off the bucket list is Zegapane. So they licensed that. They licensed not just the series that Bandai had and was dubbed by Elastic Media, but there was a movie that was a prequel that was released, and then I guess a newer one they just released, and they got those too, and they're going to put them all on a set. But Zegapane is important because that was an old Bandai one. Remember when they sent all their stuff to Funimation to Sentai? That was one of the series that was sent to Sentai that Sentai never released. So as everyone joked, Sentai just got this list of anime, and the only thing they released was Big O and Big O 2. So all they probably wanted was the Big O. But
and they left everybody else.
So I got the list again. And so let's see. They now have gotten Scried, Zegapane they just got, Kurakami the animation, Overman King Gygar they got, and stuff like that. So there's still some more to get. Infinite Revius, I feel like they could get. So that's still on the table. The Girl Who Leapt Through Space, that's still on the table.
Wait, so repeat again. Infinite Revius is a personal favorite. So that would have been with, or that's
Sentai.
still in...
That would have been with Sentai. All these ones, I bet you they've lost the light.
These are purgatory. These are purgatory.
Basically, a lot of them, if they've started to release some of these ones, right, over the past few years, I would say their licenses for a lot of the ones that aren't the Big O have run out. And it's just a matter of who wants to pick it up. So hopefully maybe Discotech takes a look at those other lost children and decides to bring them over, like Infinite Revice.
I will. Okay, having losing the battle on Yawara, I would go to bat for Infinite Revius myself. I don't know how much, I don't know how much I've expressed being to you guys how much of a fan I am of that series. Maybe on and off over the past 20 years, but that is a personal favorite of mine. That would sit remember we that joke about what are my top ones, and then Amy thinks I should be sticking I've always stated my top ones. Maison Koku, Kimagure Orange Road, the show with Soba Kasu as its theme song. And then Amy would put up the argument that 5 centimeters per second is in that, which she's probably right. But she's also thinking that Kaguya-sama, Love is War, is there. I think at the very least, let me finish rereading the manga all the way through, and I'll let you know. I can tell you Infinite Revias is in that orbit. Maybe not quite in that in my own personal Mount Rushmore, but it's there. It's up there. It is up there as a personal favorite of mine.
Another one's off the list, so hopefully maybe next year Infinite Revice is taken off that list.
And depending on how Blue Box goes, that could probably find itself in that conversation too. Okay,
So the next ones are the big ones. So I never got any of the Digimon stuff, but let's put it this way: this has been a release that did really well for Discotek. Like the first Digimon movie set got them into some of those, Blu-ray lists of top-selling Blu-rays for when it released in December. So obviously the next 3 movies, the third, the fourth, and the fourth, the fifth, and the sixth are going in one Blu-ray set, and I guess they're going to release that in the future, and they'll probably make some more money off that, and hopefully that'll get us some old anime, you know what I mean? But I know there's probably a lot of people that are excited about that, along with some of the other older cartoons that are coming out too. And I know they had announced Mega Man was another one.
Love the cover, by the way. I always love that cover for Mega Man. But it
was funny because Mega Man, I think that was ADV too. Then Discotek brought it back basically with the DVD, and now they've got the Blu-ray, and they did some kitchen sinks. So I think they got some nice extras for that. Before one of the big ones, I'm going to skip it. I'll save it till last. But another is remember ADV Rescue. So it was a quintessential ADV release, then went to Media Blasters, then went to Discotek as a DVD. And people were like, do the materials exist for this series? And that's Golden Boy. So Golden Boy, they said, is going to get Blu-ray, and it's actually got released. It's going to come in October. But everyone remembers Golden Boy, that OVA, like the English dub that ADV did, and it was obviously one of the earlier ones. It's just a rip-roaring fun time. You know what I mean? Like you remember the dub more than you remember.
Check your brain at the door. But it's just too much fun. It won't. It won't win any real awards, but you'll remember it for all good reasons, really.
Yeah, it was a very long manga series, but they just did a small OVA. But that one, and supposedly the guy who played Kentaro, the main character in that, he only did so much, but he did art and stuff for ADV. So he supposedly is designing the cover for the Blu-ray, and they also got him to do a commentary track on one of the episodes and stuff like that. I guess talking about his experience.
This could be, that could be fun for that reason alone, actually. Okay, let's continue.
But a lot, like they have most of the, like they had some other things too in there. They had live action. They had Toku series as well, like some more Kamen Rider stuff. And so it's good to see the diversity. I'm not too much into the Toku stuff. The live action stuff, sometimes I'll step my toe in, but it's good to see that different people are getting different stuff. So the last thing, like there were many more things we could say, but the big one that they dropped at the end of probably the panel, and it would have been interesting to be in that room to hear them announce this. And that was basically the halfway point for us on the virtual one, was people have been asking for Monster Urasawa's Monster, the anime, for a long time. And I think a lot of people are like, well, if they're going to bring something out, it probably makes more sense that we end up just getting Master Keen on SD Blu-ray or something like that, because that would be a cheaper license, and maybe you could sell that now.
What about
Because
Yawara?
Urasawa was a bigger name, and
I
who
know.
knows, maybe in Yawara could get a chance. But the thing with Yawara is it's the episode count, Mike. That's the problem. Now you could say to me, well, James, they did Yuritse Yatsura, and we know how many episodes that is.
Well, you're right. Monster at this stage is probably the safer bet. Is a safe bet in comparison, right?
But
And
yes, as we're talking, they did license Monster, the TV series, all 74 episodes. Now they mention complete set, like they said, obviously this is going to come out in 2026. We don't know what the release look is going to be. Is it going to be a complete Blu-ray set with all 74 episodes, which would mean probably about 6 Blu-ray discs? Or are they going to split it up and maybe it's going to be maybe 2 sets or something like that? Because other places in the world have released it in Blu-ray recently, so it started to get out there past Japan, and they've been doing more than 1 set. Like it just came to Germany in the last 2 years and got the first German dub, which is probably poignant since that's where it mostly takes place in, is Germany and Central Europe.
yeah, who says anime is Japanese?
But yeah, no. The other thing, like you think about, is I guess there was some build up to this. So they are going to have obviously the dub that was done by Viz, and so all the dub's going to be there. It'll be nice to have the full series and stuff like that. Unlike the one box set I have of the first 15 episodes from Viz, I never did get the Siren Visual DVD. So Siren Visual before was the only one in the English speaking world in Australia, New Zealand, to release all of Monster in some form. You know what I mean? Physically. So that DVD was the only one we had before. And that one was interesting because the music, they retained the music from the television show, the original music from Japan. Whereas I know when they released it, Viz released it, right? Put it on streaming, put it on TV, and that. Some of the music was changed, so it'll be interesting to see what track they get. Is it the international track, or is it more tuned to the original Japanese track that a lot of people remember when they were watching it as fan subs over 20 years ago and stuff like that? But it's going to be fun to watch that one, and it was a long time coming. Like I guess some of it is, remember we had talked about NTV, so NTV is the licensor for Monster. Remember that Monster and Berserk, basically from NTV, were put on Netflix, right? And funny enough, Monster on Netflix does not have the dub. It just has the Japanese with English subtitles. So at least you'll be able to get the dub and stuff like that. But probably that might have paved a bit of the way and stuff like that, because remember, they got Berserk and stuff like that and was able to get that into the world, and that did really well. And so hopefully that kind of pushed it along, that they were able to make headway to maybe actually license Monster, and they got to where they are now.
Yeah, so that's a big one. And as I said, if you're going to pick something from Urasawa right now, that was probably it was the safe choice. As much as I would want to see Yawara, as much as maybe I would have wanted to see Master Keaton, Monster was the best choice. It's the one that has the biggest fan base right now, right? Probably always has for years. So 20th Century Boys notwithstanding, I guess.
Well, and it's like one of the, as we know, we've only seen so many Urasawa anime series, right? Because a lot of we have had 20th Century Boys and all these other manga, and we haven't seen Billy Bat come out in English and stuff like that. But it's always interesting seeing his manga and stuff like that. And this one, like Monster, is interesting because you know how you said sometimes that you'll read the original source material and anime will help to, you know what I mean, like the form, right? Whatever that art form is going to elevate it and maybe add something different. And sometimes that may mean that you're not going to follow the exact narrative or maybe do something different. Monster is a thing where they basically follow the manga from panel 1 of page 1 all the way to the very end of the last panel of volume 18 and stuff like that. Like, it is tit for tat the same, but it's one of those things where a lot of people still love it and respect it, is because they took all that and they elevated it through the medium of anime. They added that ambiance, that music, that noise, those characters, their words, you know what I mean? The movement, the
They
motion of
are,
the characters that we have to envision in the manga, right?
and then and with it, they give it they probably would evoke an emotion by anybody who consumes it. I mean, and part of my argument was always one ends up advertising the other in many ways too, right? For better and once again, another cliche I like to use, for better or worse, right? Once again, and just going back to my own recent stuff, I want to know more of the Blue Box story because I watched a depiction of the first 10 volumes. And Alia, when I finished that up, I know there's more to that story. That's why I want to read the light novels. Same thing with My Stepmom's Daughter. So, but there's a bunch of ways to approach that thought. Like, there's a bunch of ways to approach the notion that the manga or the anime ends up selling the other. Right? Or the manga ends up being an advertisement for the light novel or the manga, and vice versa, or whichever way you want that triangle to go. I guess now it's a triangle. We can make it a quad if you want to add video games and visual novels, right? So there's many, like, you can make the argument on many fronts. That I guess that's my point. And Monster, you just presented another argument that sometimes it can work to be verbatim. You just have to have the execution perfect. And the sense I'm getting, because I've never watched the anime myself, the sense I'm getting is this was as good an execution as you were going to see of that concept.
Yeah. And it was a series that resonated with a lot of people and stuff like that. And it was one of those things where, well, Master Keaton was episodic, and sometimes Yawara could be episodic. This one is from episode 1 to episode 74, and the same for the manga. It isn't really that episodic. Everything comes together, going from starting in East-West Germany in the 80s and stuff like that with Dr. Tenma, all the way to him going through what he has to in the 90s and stuff like that. So it's an incredible journey, just following from beginning to end. And that's why you could see, like, thinking back on it, we've seen many live actions, right? And it's too bad that the live action for Monster fell through, because I think originally they wanted to get it, and they had people in place. They wanted to get it on HBO, and it would have probably been perfect for Premiere TV and stuff like that. That type of show, like a mystery, bit of action, stuff like that. Looking at a time that some people can't quite remember because they're starting these, then going into the 90s and stuff like that. And it kind of like True Detective, like, you know what I mean?
Could have been.
And the thing is, we have all, like, it has a very diverse cast, whether it's Dr. Tenma, the Japanese, or you have the different people from Germany or different other places in Europe, right? So,
well, never say never. Now that you bring up the idea of the live action again, just got to pick the right material, I guess, and the right execution, as we always say. And
it's one of those ones where, Japan's not going to do that type of live action, so it would have to come from abroad, in my mind.
But maybe this is a good one to try. Anyway, and sorry, don't at me, anybody who hates such adaptations. Okay, do you want to save just a quick word for Aim for the Ace and Castle Cagliostro before we go? Those are the last two titles, right, that were in the panel.
Yeah, there's some other ones, but yeah, Aim for the Ace was Shin Aim for the Ace. So that's when they released in the late 70s, but they redid the original first arc, I believe. And so they put that out. And then I guess Cagliostro is interesting in that we have the 4K and all that stuff, they're bringing some of those extras they had on the 4K to basically this Steelbook Blu-ray. The key thing that is going to be a selling point to people as well is they're doing another dub. So Discotek put up for this dub, not TMS, and they're dubbing it with the classic English cast for Castle Cagliostro. So now you'll have another dub option, stuff like that, and I think it's exclusive to Crunchyroll. So
yeah. So Tony Oliver, Richard Epcar. These are
Michelle Ruff.
Michelle Ruff, Doug Erholtz. These are legendary names. Anybody who keeps up with dubs will recognize these names, and many of them have. And in the case of Tony Oliver, it's we're talking the better part of 40 years, because he's Rick Hunter after all. So yeah, this is that. There's intrigue with this new release of Castle Cagliostro.
Yeah, and Richard Epcar is the one helping to direct the dub and get that all together. So it was helping between him and obviously the people at Discotek and stuff like that. So
yeah,
it's basically it's kind of like what they have done. You know how they did the fan disc for Reborn, and then that fan disc for the Space Cobra movie with the yellow soundtrack and stuff like that. It's kind of like for the fans type of release, so to speak.
Yeah, but that's
so it's like you got the Steelbook and you got another dub. So
yeah,
and it's an iconic movie. So
it is an iconic movie, and
they probably wanted to get some of those extras they had on the 4K. Like I know people are saying, well, why didn't you just release it with the 4K or have a 4K and Blu-ray? You know what I mean? Dual pack in the Steelbook, and I guess you could do that, but at the end of the day, they're only so big and stuff like that. So it's like if you really love it, then you might want to support it and get the Blu-ray. And whether it's 4K or Blu-ray, it's fine, and you still have the 4K if you already have it. The only thing you're missing is the new dub.
I would be curious to at least watch that, like another run through the movie just to watch the dub, that's just speaking on maybe my own preference. But hey, nobody care. I'm sure nobody like on the other end, Discotek wouldn't care about your reasons as long as it gets them a sale, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's the upshot of the Discotek panel, and pretty much near the end of what we got to do, because I know you're working in the morning. I'm working.
Yeah, no, we can still go a bit of time, because I said we'd make it worth it, right, for the anime and stuff like that. Maybe talk about some anime or video games from
or
this
what we're
season,
doing,
or
there
were some interesting.
Okay, I've talked on. We'll go back to what I've been doing in a bit, but okay, your watch. What's caught
I got a lot to go through, but I guess if I was asking you, so you said you're reading Dress Up Darling. Are you watching the second season or still at the first?
Okay, I guess we start with me first. Okay, I finished, and this is sort of me as I'm getting back into watching on Crunchyroll. Okay, I have trouble. I think the way I'm going to end up watching stuff, I am not going to be in the habit of watching, a simul sub or a simulcast of some sort, because maybe I want to just, like, if I know something is done, or at least we're at a core is finished, I'll just want to focus on that core all the way through. If I know like a 12 or 13 episodes is there and that core is finished. So to that end, my Dress Up Darling, I've only finished 12 episodes. I know that the second season, and that's the first season. I haven't watched any of the second season yet.
Well, the second season, I would say, I guess it would be halfway done, because they got like 6 episodes in that. So I'm basically watching it week to week. It's they changed the order up a bit from the manga, but that doesn't dissuade anyone, because I've seen that many times before. And sometimes it's because they take a shorter arc, right, and kind of start with that, and then work their way through the longer stuff. Like they've just finished this episode, the school festival arc and stuff like that, to a degree, because they ended the last episode on the best possible way. Like it was just, it makes you laugh too hard, where it's in the manga and they finish like basically Marin was a host and stuff like that, and they're going to the celebration, stuff like that. They're done the karaoke, and so they're at the claw game. They do that, but then Marin's looking at the photo booth and like, oh, I should go in with Gojo. We haven't had a photo and stuff like that. So she's putting the coins in to go in there, and then some of the guys from the class come by, and they end the episode the perfect way, just like they did in that part of the manga. So it was a good point to end on, where the guys say, oh, we should just, so they go in with Gojo, have a picture with him that Marin paid for. She doesn't even get a photo with him, even though that's what she was hoping for. And you just see her face just like, oh man.
Yeah, well, everyone wants. Yeah, and the thing is, with the way Gojo is starting to develop and have friends, yeah. So that's that. My current watch is, as I said, the other watch is Alia. So I'll finish, and I think I'll just finish that season because I'm at episode 10 now.
I'll finish that season. They only have season 1. I think they said there's a season 2, but I don't know when exactly that's going to premiere, so to speak.
And then I'll decide what to watch next, and it'll probably be, a handful of episodes. I watched the first couple episodes of Thunderbolt Fantasy on the topic of stuff that happened at Anime North.
And they've been coming to Anime North for a few years, so that's nice too, right? So.
It's just I don't think but my point being, I'm just not sure I could keep up, watch something like in the current season right now. It's just because one, I want to catch up on other stuff that I've missed in the year and a half I didn't have a Crunchyroll subscription, and maybe almost 2 years that I didn't watch on Crunchyroll. And there's so much I still wanted to finish up and watch. And maybe that'll give time for the other stuff in the current season to build up, and maybe I can watch those in a binge. But I don't regret.
And that's the thing, right? They have an endless amount of content, right?
Yeah, and and just to answer the question again, because I did go Mega Fan because I want to download so I can watch on the subways, right?
Oh yes, yeah. See, I can't do it. So basically, I've stuck with the most, and it's kind of like what's happened with. Yeah, I'm still the fan. So it's like with everything else. Like we've had that, so that's why I stick with that. And then you have all these other things, like as you know, Nintendo raised all their prices.
Yeah.
Obviously, they raised the price for the Switch, but here in Canada, they raised the price for the subscription, likely for Nintendo Online, but it was just by a few dollars because it was based on the dollar, right?
Yeah.
The one thing that was obviously they raised stuff on the console and stuff like that, just like they did in the States, was just crazy because it's the end of the lifestyle before Switch 2. But the thing that was the kicker, they did it in other stuff, like maybe some accessories, like the Alarmo and stuff like that. But they didn't raise anything on games in the States. But because remember I said they were doing it based on how the dollar was doing, they raised the price in Canada by $5 on all the first party games. So instead of for example, $79.99 for Mario Odyssey or Breath of the Wild or whatever, it's now $84.99, which is baloney. So obviously they had done this before where it stayed the same price, but on the sales, you weren't getting $49.99, you were getting $54.99. Now you're not just getting less from the sales, you're paying more than what people did originally for the MSRP. So instead of $79.99, $84.99. It's a kick in. Well, it would have been a more funny kick in the pants, as I was talking to someone, if what they should have done just to piss people off more is they should have put Player's Choice or Nintendo Selects or something like that, and then charge the ridiculous price. It's like instead of lowering the price, they raise the price. It's just like, oh my god.
I know, as a Nintendo fan,
you could understand for the Switch too, like those games, right? We talked about I can be angry, but I understand where the price. But it's the thing of these are already out on the market.
Yeah,
you're been out for a number of years and stuff like that. Yes, you're manufacturing and all that, but they've already went through most of those sales. You just leave them be at the very least.
Yeah,
you don't have to.
Well, ideally, when you're at the when you're in the latter stages of a product life cycle, maybe they should be a little bit down to
The
try
one
and
that
squeeze out those a few more sales, right?
the one that kills me the most is Sony. Like the PS, you know how they have the different tiers. Obviously, I'm on the lowest of PS Plus. I let it go this time to renew, but I'm not sure if I'm going to renew the next time because when they redid those tiers, right, they raised the base price of PS Plus, and now they raised them all again this year. It's like, and so it's over $100 for the base PS Plus, where it's just the free games and the online. And I think I'm really going to look at it and say, do I really need this? So
I
that's
will.
why.
I will start saying that with some of my my other subscriptions and other services, not necessarily entertainment ones, not necessarily streaming. They're starting to come
But basically, it would be a choice, and I think I'd stick with Nintendo. Is cheaper at the moment, so I'd probably go Nintendo
well,
over Sony.
I mean, you strike me more. I mean, you talk more about your Nintendo fandom, really, and that's fine.
But I still have a lot of Sony stuff that I get there, but it's single player experiences. I don't need the online, you know what I mean,
Yeah.
subscription.
Well,
So
you just wait for that. Just wait for Netflix to do theirs again. Look,
that's why I'm not on the subscription. You know what I mean? All those
Yeah.
ones they're trying to push down people's throat, the free to play games or the pay to play, you know what I mean, or skins or all that other stuff. I'm still stuck in the 90s on those games.
Sure. I think I can only do single players myself because then I don't have to feel pressure to play. And to that end, Yakuza 3 is still on the horizon. As soon as I get past the golf challenge that Haruka gave me in Yakuza Kiwami 2, which will be the topic of the next stream, and hopefully it
probably I guess with. So I'm trying to think.
Hours.
So the one you got for Crunchyroll was one thing up, I guess. It's one above the fan, right?
So it gives you technically gives you 4 devices at once, and you can download. You can download for offline viewing. Although there's some.
How much can you download though for offline viewing? Like I'm guessing there's a limit.
I'd like to. I haven't looked it up, to be honest, if there is one, but there hasn't really been an issue in that sense. But you know, the app itself.
The question is, do you use it, right? Because I feel like I wouldn't use it enough the way it's intended. Whereas for you with the commute, it probably makes sense because you're like, wait, I'm actually using this a lot, so the value is still there.
Yeah, well, mileage varies. Every person's different, right? Right now, that's the reason I would do it, because I have a reason, and it works out fine in that sense. I mean, I watch Netflix stuff only because I'm able to download it and for offline onto my phone or my iPad. And let me show you my iPad, maybe, which I don't bring out often, right? And I probably won't use this as much on a subway because I'd like to keep it and not have it snatched from my hands while I'm holding it. But
I love how we live in such a great society now, Mike.
Yeah, these days. So this probably stays in the bag on the commute, because I tried using this reading or watching off of this on the subway, and at the time I'm commuting, it's too crowded for me to hold this, to be thumbing through this comfortably, right? It's too
no, everyone's trying to get where they need to go, right? So sometimes you can't really, you gotta really.
I don't argue it. I like my own personal current time frame. Now it's just that the subways are more packed, that I can't stretch out. So this would have been good, you know, in the former time frame that I had, my former the recent schedule I had, because there's more space on the subways. I can just stretch out, and I'd probably be able to do this. But for now, I think I'm sticking with the smartphone and for my commute viewing, right? And or a Kindle. So there's those. So just for reference.
And I'm guessing you had already finished Blue Lock, right? Because that's on Crunchyroll, I know.
Blue Lock, I haven't. You know what? I haven't. So maybe I should continue. Maybe that'll be back on the to watch list. I have to kind of go.
No, I knew Kaguya-sama you had finished though, right? But so because I wasn't sure if you had finished.
I've watched all the Kaguya-sama anime. Yeah, I finished up everything in terms of the anime. I'll probably have to rewatch, because the last thing that was done was the movie that came out 2 years ago, and I haven't seen it on Crunchyroll. but I saw it
Yeah,
in theaters.
sometimes the movies come later, as you know, and sometimes
Mhm.
not at all, right? So we'll see how that
Demon
goes.
Slayer. Demon Slayer probably figures into things as well, into my future watching as well. Okay, just quickly, what's on your watch before we go
Wow.
tonight?
We'll try and make it 3 hours.
Yeah, and
I no. Well, actually, before I go on the games and the anime, because there were a few interesting ones. Like, it's interesting this summer season. A few things like it started off with. Did you hear about Grand Blue Dreaming? So that was on Amazon, like Anime Strike and stuff like that. Amazon Prime, basically Crunchyroll. It took a while, but Grand Blue Dreaming finally got a second season. It's on Crunchyroll, so Crunchyroll also put the first season on. But supposedly, Grand Blue Dreaming season 2, before the first episode premiered and stuff like that, basically, or just as it premiered, all of the season, so all of Grand Blue Dreaming leaked onto the internet. Now, it wasn't a good quality. It was 480p resolution. It wasn't the 1080p or, you know what I mean, that you would see on Crunchyroll, but it still leaked. So hopefully they're doing well, because that I just can't. And it wasn't on the North American side, it was somewhere. But that's just one of the things where that series, the reason why it's also important is, you know how usually we talk about how there's this tough thing with the schedules, and sometimes we have these delays of episodes because they're going from episode to episode, right, to try and finish. So Grand Blue season 2, they basically finished it all up. It was all done, it was all ready to go. And so probably was, you know, I mean, to help with, you know, how we talk about crunch with the animators, with getting everything done and all that stuff. Probably they're like, okay, why don't we try to get this all done the way we want? And then once it's done, we can find a slot for it and put it in there. But now this happens. So is anyone ever going to try and do that again? You know what I mean?
you
So that
hope,
one.
you hope, but this is the reality.
But
This is the sad reality of the
and
times
the
we're in.
fans of the series, like, it had been a long wait. So that one, it's based on a manga, and it's just these college age kids and stuff like that, and scuba diving. So it's a fun series. So one day I'm gonna watch it. But that was an interesting one. And then the other thing that was interesting is Amazon Prime. So they've been getting back. Amazon's been getting back into anime this year, and we know they got back into anime. Obviously, the Evangelion movies, right? They've been involved in that. You heard G Kids Evangelion, the first movie, the second movie, right? So 1.01 and 1.02.
Mhm.
So G Kids is going to re-release them, but they said with the new dub. So with the Amazon dub. So those versions we have, you know, the Blu-rays from Funimation, they still hold value, because it doesn't sound like they're bringing back the Funimation dub, which is unfortunate. So, but for Amazon Prime this season, what was interesting is they have two series that basically Funimation had either a version of or the previous season of before and stuff like that. So remember Funimation, Crunchyroll, they had Nichijou, and
You've mentioned
that
it,
one they
yes.
did release without a dub, and then they finally dubbed it and got it out there. So the manga creator of Nichijou, he did City the animation, and City got put out the 13 volume manga from Vertical Kodansha. So the City the animation is being animated by Kyoto Animation, just like Nichijou, and it's being put out on Amazon Prime. They're doing a simul dub as well. So all these Amazon ones they've been doing and starting this year, they've been doing simul dubs. So English, Spanish, Portuguese, Brazilian. So all these ones I'm talking about have that, which is nice. And it sounds like they're doing it in California. So they're doing City the animation. That'll be interesting to see how that goes. And it's interesting that obviously Crunchyroll can't get everything. So basically, City went to Amazon Prime, even though they had a connection to another thing that this creator had, right? And the funny thing about the creator, Keiichi Ari, I forget his last name, but Keiichi, he, once he finished City, you know what he did instead of creating a new series? He decided, I'm going back to Nichijou. And it wasn't like, Nichijou Volume 1 and he put some crazy subtitle on. It's Nichijou Volume 11. It's like he just went back to try what he did before, which was funny. It's like, how often do you hear that, right?
No, it's creators' prerogative, right?
And so the other thing that was the other series is Studio Trigger. Remember they had announced new Panty and Stocking with Garter Belt and how Panty and Stocking was with Funimation. So Amazon Prime streaming the new Panty and Stocking anime this season with a new dub cast and stuff like that. And that one was Studio Trigger is behind that one and stuff like that. So that's interesting that Amazon got those two. So just because Crunchyroll is the biggest, they can only spend so much, I'm guessing, as you know, and some things go to Netflix too, right? So it'll be interesting to see what happens with Prime in the future, I guess.
Well, maybe you hope it gets better because maybe that's the only way you'll get competition.
And then there's the outside Crunchyroll, just before I get to it, the Remo YouTube channel, they had, sometimes they'll put stuff on Crunchyroll, right? But the Remo YouTube, they had two new series this season, stuff like that. They're still doing Kochikami that I talked about. But one of the series is interesting. It's Shonen Jump manga that was done in the 90s, basically. Had some anime in the 90s and stuff like that. I thought the movies had been released by manga, but no one has ever released the anime TV series or the movies that was done in the 90s. And that was Hell Teacher Jigoku Sensei Nube. And so that was from back in Shonen Jump manga. And so it definitely has the 90s feel. Like obviously the animation is updated, but you can tell it's from the 90s. It's kind of horror anime and stuff like that. It's about this teacher with his class and stuff like that, and he's basically trying to stop these supernatural things that are going on around his school and community and stuff like that. But that was Hell Teacher Jigoku Sensei Nube. And that one is an interesting one if you want something that is modern but feels like it's from the 90s. And then the other one that was interesting, and this is an interesting one that they have on their YouTube one that is like, is YouTube going to take it off? Because it's by Studio Mother, and they've done some ecchi series and stuff like that. But this is an ecchi Yuri series called There's No Frickin' Way I'll Be Your Lover Unless ... And it's basically this poor girl in high school and stuff like that, and she basically was kind of a shut-in, and then she's like, okay, I'm going to change myself, I'm going to try and make friends, all this other stuff, but she still has a bit of social anxiety. And then the most popular girl in the school and stuff like that, basically they get into their friend group, and then basically they they confess to each other. Well, she confesses, the popular girl, to her, and she's like, no, I'd rather be your friend. So they're having this competition about whether they're going to be a lover or a friend and stuff like that. And there's a lot of etchiness going on in it for a Yuri series, to say the least, which is interesting to see on YouTube, right? So
yeah, catch it while you can. Sounds like just right away.
But that's interesting. So Remo, remember, so they have those ones on YouTube. Sometimes they'll go to other places, but the YouTube one, as we say, is interesting because anyone can go on there and watch it on the Remo, its anime channel. And they have other channels for other places in the world for other languages. But all you have to do is go in, you can watch it. A lot of time it's just for 1 week, then they go to the next episode, right? And then later on, they have like a playlist if you want to watch it all together and stuff like that. But the only thing, you're not paying for anything. How it's done is you have ads, of course. So I'm not sure how they're making money, because remember, ads aren't what they used to be, right?
And people forever will pay to find the workarounds.
Yep. And so the last one is there's a lot of fun ones on Crunchyroll. So I was watching Dress Up Darling, as I told you. Still watching Aunt Shirley. It's doing great. It's very fast though, as we said. So like they're on the third book now, Anne of the Island, and that's probably where they're gonna finish. But it's going through quickly. And then I'm still watching Summer Pockets. That's based on a Key visual novel. And it's funny thinking of that too, because so Key on the Switch, Air?
Yeah.
Air just, so it was released on Switch in Japan, stuff like that. They never did, they just had in Japanese. They just updated it to have Chinese and English on the Japanese version, and they've just released last week on the North American eShop, so Canada, US, and other places, Air in English and stuff like that. So I'm waiting for it to get back in stock as a physical edition to get Air and stuff like that. And hopefully with Summer Pockets being on Crunchyroll, maybe they'll decide to translate that too. So they've basically done all the classic Key visual novels, funny enough, now that I think about it. They got Air, they got Canon, and they got Clannad.
You know what? I bought the Clannad Blu-ray a couple weeks ago too, right? In my birthday binge. So I'll give myself time to watch that. The whole thing.
And it's funny when we talked about censorship quickly, it's interesting on that one is that Canon, for example, I'm glad I got the Japanese physical edition. Not only did I get the physical edition, but it was unmolested and uncensored, unlike the digital version in North America. Even though there's nothing, like it's the all ages version, right? But obviously they felt there was some content that they had to not let our North American eyes see. So, but at least you can still get in Japan a physical copy and not have to worry about and it has the English in that. So they're using the same translation. So hopefully Air doesn't have that problem, but I'm going to wait and get it when the physical comes out. And I know they had the new Fate remaster for Fate Hollow came out as well. But the other ones, like there's some other fun series, like I saw the Detectives These Days Are Crazy, which was based on manga, and that was interesting because it's a detective show, but it's comedy and stuff like that. It's kind of like, do you ever remember the Ramen Fighter Miki? That series?
Ramen Fighter Mickey, yeah, I do remember.
Yeah, and it was kind of Looney Tunes, and you had like three mini episodes in one episode. Well, you kind of have that 3 mini episodes in an episode. And yes, sometimes you have the serious detective stuff, but sometimes you have the wacky antics of this old detective guy that's basically, his bones are all broken. He's old, he's washed up. He used to be like this brilliant detective when he was a high school kid, and now he is where it is. And then this high school girl comes in that is ridiculously overpowered and basically uproots his world and stuff like that in wanting to be a detective like him. And so you can think of the antics they could get into. So that was an interesting one. And then the other one that on the more serious side is Solo Camping for Two. So
that title does come up in my recommendations.
So Solo Camping from Two is very different from laid back camping. So laid back camping, we had high school girls going out camping in Japan. Solo Camping for Two, we have adults going out camping and stuff like that. And I know, and like Anime News Network and a few different people have said, oh, they didn't like the fact that, so the one main guy just loves going solo camping. It's like enjoying the atmosphere and all that stuff. And it starts out with him just doing his thing. He's going out, enjoying the camping, enjoying the site, enjoying the stars, all that. And then he goes, I guess, to the washroom, comes back. And then the other main character comes in. She comes in. It's a female, bit younger than him, just, I want to say either late university or just after university age. So we're in her 20s, and he's in his early 30s. And she basically is ill-prepared to go camping. Basically, came too late, can't go to the registration to register or get a tent or do anything. So she's basically ill-prepared to be out in this weather. And basically he saves her life and stuff like that in that first episode, even though, and basically somehow ends up being her sensei on how to basically camp, you know what I mean? And get the most enjoyment out of it. But the other thing that he gets out of it that he's starting to warm up to is that you see in this episode he was eating like camp food, like things in cans and stuff like that. She actually, her special power is she knows how to cook. So basically, he's eating well if he's camping with her and stuff like that, even though she has issues setting up a tent and stuff like that.
But she
or
can
doing
she knows
other
how to
camping.
adapt. She knows how to
Or
adapt
getting the right
culinary
equipment.
wise. But she knows how to adapt culinary wise. That's
But
it.
that one, I know they said, but I thought to myself, I said, yes, yeah, it's probably not great. But I said, it's not too far off in some ways, because I was thinking about Mount Fuji, and you know the issues they've had with Mount Fuji, and people like obviously even in the off season. And I was thinking of that one, I think it was a Chinese student, and I'm not sure, it was recent, so it was within the past 4 years or something like that, where it was a fella from China. I guess he decided, I'm going to go and climb Mount Fuji or whatever. Obviously, not prepared as he should have been. And I guess whatever trail, he only probably got halfway up or wherever, and he had to call for assistance. They had to get a helicopter him out and stuff like that. And so he basically was in the hospital because I'm guessing altitude sickness and all that other stuff. And I guess he realized that he didn't have his phone, stuff like that, and thought the phone was still on the mountain. So what does he do? He goes back up to the same spot, basically where he was before, to try and find his phone. And guess what? They had to go and rescue him again. And supposedly that has not made people happy. You know what I mean? They're starting to say, you know what? If you do that a second time, you got to pay the cost. You know what I mean?
He might have reputation wise.
But no, it's one of those things where some people just don't realize the commitment you have to do to either do that or to go on camping, because some seasons, if you don't have the right sleeping bag, if you don't have the right coat or the right thing, you could be getting hypothermia. You could be, you know what I mean? Like you could be in for trouble. Or you could have wild animals if you don't know your surroundings.
And that's the least of your worries.
Or as we know at this time of season, we can't have a fire because guess what? What if a spark goes off and goes and flies on the wind and sets something on fire, right?
Sure, we can import the smoke to the US. Okay.
But yeah, no, there's tons of fun things out there for series and stuff like that. The video games, as we said, I know we had talked about that. So I ended up getting a Switch too and stuff like that. I think the surprise, and I think for some people, is Donkey Kong Bonanza has been fun. So yeah, we've played, everyone's played Mario Kart, but Donkey Kong Bonanza came out last month and we kind of got a taste of it, but I feel like they should have shown a lot more of it before, you know what I mean? Like tell us that Pauline isn't in there, you know what I mean? All they showed was what Pauline was before, but then when they did the main direct, they showed Pauline, they showed more of what Donkey Kong Bonanza was. And once you finally get into it, like it's a fantastic platformer by the Mario Odyssey team, and it encompasses all the Donkey Kong history, like from the arcade, from Donkey Kong Country and all that stuff. And you just have a lot of fun.
Okay.
Like it's not just destroying the whole map, you know what I mean?
Wow. Okay. I'm just looking at the recent pictures too. Now that you mentioned Pauline. Oof. Wow.
Yep. And then
because I wasn't aware of that personally.
But and then I've been doing some demos and stuff like that. So one I'm looking forward to. So Mages, they have a new visual novel coming up. P-Cube's publishing it. It's called Iwakura Aria. And it's kind of a visual novel in the vein similar to House and the Fate of Morgana. So it takes place in the 1960s and stuff like that, around 1966. And two main female protagonists, and there's definitely some mystery in the air, but playing the demo has made me think I'm gonna take a look at it and get a physical edition when it releases in 2 weeks. I think it's like around August 18th or 19th it comes out. And then there were some other demos like Mina the Hollower. So that's from Yacht Club Games. They had done Shovel Knight. And so Mina the Howler is coming out on Halloween this year, 2025. They just released a demo for a couple of weeks on Switch and Switch 2, and it's the first game I've got to play in 120 frames per second. So it's very, very smooth on the Switch 2 screen, and the save will carry over. But that one's an interesting one. So in Shovel Knight, kind of an NES game, platformer going level to level. This one is kind of Game Boy Color and has the idea of, you know, the Legend of Zelda Oracle games. So they had Oracle of Ages, Oracle of the other, but anyway, the two Oracle games and stuff like that. So it kind of has that and the Castlevania element, and then you're going through the world and you can burrow underneath the ground, which has some effect as you're going through. So that'll be a fun one. And then the other one I told you about before, the other demo, was remember the 2D HD games, and they had done Octopath, they had done which is RPG and stuff like that, traditional. Then they did Triangle Strategy, which was strategy RPG. So now they're trying out action RPG. So they've released The Adventures of Elliot, The Millennium Tales, a demo to try out, and then give feedback when they give us a survey. And Square Enix is going to release that next year. And I enjoyed the other 2D HD games, but nothing that made me like I would rent or, play a friend's copy. It was something I'd buy. But the action RPG, like playing this one, it's something I would buy. Like for some people see Zelda and stuff like that with the boss fight and throwing the bombs and the sword and all that stuff. But I could definitely see the lineage of Falcom, of action RPGs, of Ys, and other things like Secret of Mana and stuff like that. So it's fun to just go around the world in this beautiful world and then do an action RPG adventure. So hopefully it goes well, and we'll see how that happens. But if you want to have a downer then of the worst, I don't want to call it the worst experience, but it still was a bad experience, was this weekend. I tried the DragX Drive demo, global demo. And so, as you know, the Joy-Cons, right? You can use them as mice. Mm-hmm. So they had brought out Mario Paint, so you can use the mouse with that. That's fun, stuff like that. So obviously they want tech to show the mice and stuff like that for Nintendo. So they have DragX Drive. It's coming out in a few weeks. For Canada, I think it's like $30 plus tax, and then States it's $20 plus tax. So they had this free global demo, but I tried it. I know some other people tried it, and basically you're just using the Joy-Cons and you're using them as the mice, and it's basically wheelchair basketball, and you're basically using the mouse to move the wheels of the wheelchair and stuff like that. And then when you're close to the basket and stuff like that, you're throwing, basically like flicking one of the Joy-Cons to throw the ball into the hoop and stuff like that. And then if you're trying to get it off someone, like the ball and stuff like that, you're kind of like using the mouse to crash into them and stuff like that. And then you can't pass the ball. Like you're just hitting the shoulder buttons and stuff like that, the L and R, to then pass it to the closest person and stuff like that. But you're mostly using mouse controls and stuff like that. The thing though is, it feels like if we were doing it for the mouse and stuff like that, I'd want something more pick up and play to get people into it. Like it doesn't feel as pick up and play. So it would leave you frustrated at times. And then the other thing is it felt so sterile. There was no cartoonish Nintendo pomp or anything like that. You're in this futuristic world where you're in robotic wheelchair basketball for all intents and purposes and
sterile,
stuff like that. You know what I mean?
In other words,
like there's no color. Let's put it that way. You're looking at
it. Just doesn't sound like there's a personality to it, right?
And that's a part of it. It just doesn't have that personality. And so it's like I'm like, okay, I'll try this demo, but it just reinforced all the bad feelings I had about, which is I'm not buying this. I said maybe they'll do something with the mice features in the Joy-Con too, and that's great. I can't wait to see them in other games, but we'll have to wait to see them. Like I know Metroid Prime 4, whenever that comes out, I know people who tried the demos at some of the events they had, going from regular play control to the mouse, they said, seemed seamless and stuff like that. So that will be interesting to see. So
It'll probably my prediction, and this is an easy prediction. There'll probably be more games for it than there was for Rob. Anyway.
You know what would be funny? They should have they could have done it. They should have put Bloody Rob in there. Or as a few other people said, why don't we have just stickers or something colorful of other Nintendo characters and just stick it on your wheelchair or something to give it some life?
Well, once again, maybe some personality is good. Anyway.
But it's like, yeah, you have all the good stuff, but yeah, you can't have all the good games, right?
You can't have it all. Not all at once anyway.
Or to show a feature, right? It's like sometimes it doesn't quite all go together.
Yeah. Anyway, well, congratulations. You managed to top Kevin's time, just for reference. 213, and on Kevin's case, we're going 225. You weren't kidding when you said, let's go 3.
Well, no, we're just going 2.5. We're just going 2.5.
Yeah, nice work. But it is, we're catching up. That's what it is, right? And that strikes. So that checks James off the list. Now next is Amy, Mo, and hopefully Neil. Sometime in the very near future. But failing that, let's do this again pretty soon. Okay, James?
Yep. There's always tons to talk about, right?
Oh, there's never a shortage of stuff. Really never.
Well, our original lineup was very different, and then you said, you know what? Why don't we talk about happy things and anime?
Yeah. Well, keep in mind my notebook. The notebook that I usually prep podcast tapings with was started blank. The only time I started jotting anything in it was when you started talking about your watch list. I'll look it up. Anyway,
until the payment processors basically ban everything.
Yeah, then maybe then I guess I get to keep some of my money, but then taxes will probably do away with the rest of it.
Well, as long as we still have the physical copies of something, we can go to our backlog, as they say, whether it be games, anime, or something else, right?
Or books, real books. Anyway, that's it. You made it to the end of the Space Heater. Let us know what you think wherever you're watching or listening to this, either in the comments down below, if you're watching this on YouTube, or animeroundtable.com. Once again, if you are listening to this on YouTube, maybe we'll put out the video version of this too. It's just two of us talking, like I said. But if you're seeing this on YouTube or listening to this on YouTube, do us a favor, give us a thumbs up. It'll greatly help us and the Roundtable as a whole. And while you're at it, do yourself and us one final favor. Give us a subscribe on YouTube, a follow on Twitch, a bookmark wherever you get your podcasts, or follow us on most socials at Anime Roundtable. That way, we'll definitely see you back here next time. As I said, James is now good to see you. Good to talk to James. Good to talk to you, James. Really. And hopefully, Amy, Mo, and Neil are next. You know what's really next? At least you set the bar. Hopefully, it doesn't take me more than 2 hours to figure out the Haruka Golf Challenge in Yakuza, because that's the next object in the streams, right?
Oh, yeah.
We're not moving on. Yeah, and we're not moving on to Yakuza 3 without successfully finishing that. That could take a few hours.
Well, as I had told you before, Mike, I said Sega's on a port run on the Switch 2, so they got Persona 3 Reload, but then I guess Yakuza 0 Director's Cut did well enough because they got Kiwami 1 and 2 coming up, so I think they're going to port them all. So at some point, you could just go and play them somewhere else, right?
Yeah,
they got them everywhere.
Well, I'm glad to hear it, to be honest. And I'll be curious to see what they end up doing with it, and maybe we'll see if they end up adding more cutscenes to that. Anyway, that's it. It's late. You got work in the morning. I got stuff in the morning too. Good talking, James. It's great.
No, great as always.
Great as always. Good to catch up. And now maybe I'll continue and try and finish Alia. And you know what? And get another drink. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the streams later in the week, and we'll see everybody else real soon. Have a good night.